Township of Edison Zoning Board of Adjustment, regular meeting of August 29th, 2023 is now in session. Adequate notice of this meeting as required by the Open Public Meetings Act of 1975 has been provided by the annual notice published in the Home News and Tribune on January 14th, 2023, and has been posted in the main lobby of the municipal complex on January 3rd, 2023. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Madam Secretary, roll call, please.
Mr. Carley? Mr. Bignell? Ms. Shaw? Mr. Ayotte?
Here.
Mr. Chabra?
Here.
Ms. Hernandez-Prince?
Here.
Mr. Patel?
Here.
Mr. Barone?
Here.
Mr. DeVay?
Here, please.
Vice Chair O'Gorman?
Here.
And Chairman Kumba?
Here. Okay, we have one announcement. Case Z2 2020 Lamar Advertising of Penn LLC at 81 U.S. Highway 1 and 101 U.S. Highway 1 has been, the applicant has adjourned, and has been carried to October 24th, 2023, with no renotice being required. If you are here for that case, Z2 2020 Lamar Advertising of Penn LLC, this is your notice. This case will not be heard this evening, but will be heard on October 24th, 2023. Madam Secretary, do we have minutes for consideration?
Yes, we have the approval of June 27, 2023 minutes.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Can I have roll call, please?
Mr. Chabra?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Barone?
Yes on the motion.
Mr. Patel?
Yes on the motion.
Ms. Hernandez-Prince?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. DeVay?
Yes on the motion, please.
Vice Chair O'Gorman?
Yes.
And Chairman Kumba?
Yes. Next on the agenda is we have a nomination. If the Secretary please read.
The nomination is naming attorney to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, Ms. Bhavini Shaw, for August 2023 to December 2023.
Like to make it.
Members, this is just, amending Ms. Shaw's contract for this year. Her firm has changed as of August 1st, so it would actually, the contract is now going to reflect the proper name of her new firm.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion made by Vice Chairman O'Gorman, seconded by Mr. Patel. Roll call, please.
Mr. Chabra?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Barone?
Yes on the motion.
Mr. Patel?
Yes on the motion.
Ms. Hernandez-Prince?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. DeVay?
Yes on the motion.
Vice Chair O'Gorman?
Yes.
And Chairman Kumba?
Yes on the motion. Madam Secretary, we have resolutions to be adopted.
Yes. First resolution to be adopted is Z20-2022, Chevet Developers, LLC.
Okay, a motion from the board.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion made by Vice Chairman O'Gorman, seconded by Mr. Patel. Roll call, please.
Mr. Barone?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes on the motion.
Mr. DeVay?
Yes on the motion.
Vice Chair O'Gorman?
Yes.
And Chairman Kumba?
Yes. Next resolution, please.
Next resolution is Z15-2022, American Outdoor Advertising, LLC. This is the motion to approve the resolution of denial.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion made by Vice Chairman O'Gorman, seconded by Mr. Patel. Roll call, please.
Mr. Patel?
Yes on the motion.
Ms. Hernandez-Prince?
Yes to the motion.
Vice Chair O'Gorman?
Yes.
And Chairman Kumba?
Yes. And the final resolution to be adopted.
Z28-2022, the Quick Check Corporation, LLC. Motion to approve resolution of denial.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion made by Vice Chairman O'Gorman, seconded by Mr. Patel. Roll call, please.
Mr. Chabra?
Yes to the motion.
Ms. Hernandez-Prince?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. DeVay?
Yes, please.
Vice Chair O'Gorman?
Yes.
Okay, first case is case number Z20.
Actually,
Oops, sorry.
1 second. Thank you, Madam Secretary. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a regular meeting of the Township of Edison Zoning Board of Adjustment. The board is composed of Edison Township residents appointed by the Municipal Council who volunteer their time and service to the board. Municipal land use law requires that members successfully complete a land use training course administered by the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. This board also holds in-house training conducted by our board professionals. The zoning board abides by the provisions of the municipal land use law, in addition to our board's bylaws. The zoning board is a quasi-judicial land use board, which differs from the township planning board. Under the municipal land use law, board members are required to be impartial and are not allowed to discuss any case prior to its consideration before the board at a hearing. All applicants will have the opportunity to present their case before the board, with the opportunity for board members and board professionals to question the applicant and their witnesses. At the conclusion of the applicant's presentation of their case, the case will be open to the public. Residents within 200 feet of the subject property will be heard, followed by residents from outside of 200 feet. All residents will be sworn in. They'll provide their name and address, and they'll be given 6 minutes to comment on the application being considered without the opportunity for a rebuttal. Residents may ask questions of the applicant's professionals, and board professionals. The board requests that these questions are asked prior to any comments being made on the application. Once commentary begins, the resident's timer will begin. The applicant will be allowed for the opportunity for cross-examination of their witnesses. Under the law, the chair is allowed to stop any comment that is repetitive or is an attempt to filibuster the board. Further, the chair is allowed to stop any commentary that is irrelevant to the case or prohibited from the board's consideration. Once the public portion is closed, all public comment is ended unless new testimony is presented by the applicant. Following the closure of the public portion, the applicant will have the right of summation on their application. Following summation, the case will go to the board for decision. This procedure has been followed by the board and is similar to the procedures followed by boards of adjustment statewide. Municipal land use law requires a board to engage in a balancing act. It is not required to strictly apply township ordinances, zoning plan, or master plan. As a board of adjustment, variances are granted when appropriately necessary, following all legal consideration. As has been the case with prior boards, this board will see where we are at if we are still in session around 10:30 p.m. I ask that the applicants, professionals, and residents show respect to each other and be civil throughout all proceedings. I ask that you withhold any applause, booing, or interrupting of anyone while they are speaking. With that being said, Madam Secretary, first case on the agenda, please.
Case number 1 is Z20-2023, Manish Ora of 28 Melbourne Lane. Applicant is proposing to construct a deck in the rear yard. The following setbacks have not been met. Deck coverage required is 4%, proposed is 6.5%. Rear yard setback required is 30 feet, proposed is 18 feet. Affected property is located in the RB zone, designated as block number 694, lot number 64, on the Edison Township tax map. All noticing paperwork is in order.
You can take a seat at the table, folks.
Mr. Aurora, would you raise your right hand? Pull the microphone closer to you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your full name for the record.
Manish Arora.
Okay, and I see that you have 2 people with you. Who is testifying here today?
So my spouse, Tanisha Arora, will be here as well, and the vendor that we've hired to do the work.
Okay, so who is testifying, though? Is your wife also going to testify, or
She
just
will.
you? Okay, so ma'am, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your full name for the record.
Tanisha Aurora.
Okay, and if you want to pass the microphone over, sir, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and
Yes.
nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And state your full name for the record.
Ralph Murray.
I'm sorry?
Ralph Murray.
Okay. If you could, folks, would like to tell us what you'd like to do and why you'd like to do it.
We have a deck, we
If you could bring the microphone closer to you, sir.
sorry.
Thave you very much.
We went ahead and have a deck that wanted to get built in the yard, and exceeded the setback by a few feet.
So it's technically, so rear yard setback requires 30 feet, you're proposed at 18 feet?
Correct.
Okay.
In the back of the property, there's just woodlands, there's no properties back there, so the fence line is just woodlands.
Okay. Does the board have any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Deve?
brick pavers are existing there?
No,
So there are no new brick pavers as well.
it's a new one, correct.
And so going 15 feet out, would you be just going to 10 foot and go more and make it more longer?
There's no room to go any longer. We have to, that's the reason for being here, because we
What?
can only the setback.
Why would you say so? You have,
There's a patio there, an existing patio, a ground level patio
Okay.
that's existing that wanted to stay.
instead of going 15 foot by 36 foot, you can go 30 by whatever the width of your house on the backside.
If we went by the setback, we would only be, the deck would only be, it's 30 feet, we would only be 3 foot off the house, the deck itself.
I get it, but instead of having, the requirement is 30-foot setback, you are at 18 foot, it's only
Correct.
leaves 12 foot there. I'm just trying to make a compromise and make it 15 or 16 foot, and I give you, instead of 15-foot deck, 10-foot deck.
Oh, instead of 15, only 10?
Yeah, and then go further long, the full width of the house.
May I speak?
Sure.
So with the 10-foot, we don't have that much space because we have stairs on the one side existing. So it would just be very narrow to come out of the doorway. So if we could at least, the 10-foot would not be enough space to even
No,
keep
but
furniture or anything.
steps would be relocated, no?
Right, yes. But we were hoping to, because we already have the patio that's there, the brick pavers, we're just trying to make on the second floor at the same length as what is already existing. There's only woodlands, we wouldn't be harming anything. And there's only woodlands in the back. We have neighbors that have bigger, if not similar sized decks in the neighborhood. And we've already reached out to all the neighbors, sent certified letters to them, nobody has an issue with it.
So you want to leave it at 15 foot
If we could, please.
by 36 foot?
No,
Correct.
yeah.
No, it's 32, not 36. I think it's 30, I'm not exact.
Your deck plan says 36 foot.
Then it should be 36, whatever's on the
If
plan.
it says 36. Thirty-six is correct.
Can you bring the microphone
It
closer?
is
sir?
36, right?
Yes, 36 is correct.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Davi. Does anyone else on the board have any questions? Okay. Sir, do you have anything else to add? No? Okay. All right, we'll now go out to the public. Anyone within 200 feet of the subject site wanting to be heard, please come up. Anyone outside of 200 feet wanting to be heard, please come up. Seeing none. Can I get a motion to close the public portion?
Motion to close public portion. Second.
Motion made by Vice Chairman O'Gorman, seconded by Mr. Patel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Public portion is now closed, and we'll go to the board.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve this deck addition as 12 foot by 36 foot.
Motion made. Is there a second? Is there a second to Mr. Davi's motion?
Anyone wants a second?
Are there any other motions from the board?
I'd like to make a motion to approve. There's no public opposition. The back is an open space, and it should benefit the neighborhood. Thank you. So I make a motion to approve.
Motion made. Is there any second?
I second the
that
motion.
Seconded by, motion made by Vice Chairman O'Gorman, seconded by Ms. Hernandez-Prince. Roll call, please.
Mr. Chabra?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Barone?
Yes.
Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Ms. Hernandez Prince,
Yes.
Mr. DeVay,
No on the motion.
Vice Chair O'Gorman,
Yes.
and Chairman Kemba.
Yes on the motion. Mr. Brown, I chose ladies first, so I chose Mr. Hernandez. You're approved. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, next case on the agenda, please.
Case Z9, 2023, Pan Kumar and Mahavi Chayuvati at 121 Rolling Brook Drive. Applicant is proposing to construct a two-story addition to the rear of the existing single-family dwelling. The following standards have not been met. Minimum rear yard setback required is 30 feet, proposed is 15.83 feet. Max building coverage permitted is 23%, proposed is 38%. Max impervious coverage permitted is 40%, proposed is 50%. Max FAR permitted is .44, proposed is .597. Affected property is located in the RB zone, designated as block number 440, lot number 64, on the Edison Township tax map. All noticing paperwork is in order.
Thank you.
Good
John Wiley, appearing on behalf of the applicant. We had appeared here back in the spring, and it was suggested that we modify the plans considerably to reduce FAR, et cetera. So tonight, we'll present how we have redesigned it. We should treat this as a separate new application, but we will be making references to some of the changes that we made from the spring.
You may proceed, Mr. Wiley.
Thank you. For my first witness, I'd like to call Mr. DuPont.
Mr. DuPont, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your full name for the record.
John P. DuPont, D-U-P-O-N-T.
Mr. Dupont, if you just briefly present your qualifications.
Yes, I am a licensed professional engineer and planner in the state of New Jersey. I've been through boards throughout the state. I've served for the Borough of Carteret for the last 28 years as the Planning and Zoning Board engineer and planner. I've been in front of this board several times.
And your license are current and in good standing.
They are current and in good standing.
You may proceed.
Thank you.
If you could describe the project to the board.
Certainly. So, as Mr. Wiley said, we were here previously. Just very quickly to go over it again. This is 121 Rolling Brook Drive. The lot is a 75 by 102-foot lot with an existing single-family home. There are a couple existing violations on the property. There's a maximum building coverage, allowable 23, existing 26. Maximum impervious area, allowable 40, existing 59. Those are existing. Our proposed project, the applicant is looking to construct an addition on the rear of the property. We were here before and we were proposing a total floor area of 5,606 square feet. That led to a couple of variances as far as building coverage, impervious coverage, rear yard setback, and FAR. The revised plan in front of you tonight, we have reduced the house to 4,588 square feet. And if I can, I will go through the proposed variances where they were 2 months ago and where they are tonight. So the maximum building coverage allowable 23%. The previous application we presented, we were at 41%. Tonight, we reduced that down to 38%. The maximum impervious coverage allowable is 40%. We were at 51.4%. Tonight, we're at 50%. The rear yard setback allowable 30. We were at 16, now we're at 15.8. And the most troublesome variance that appeared to us, the floor area ratio allowable 0.44. We were at 0.729. Tonight, we're at 0.597. So we did listen to the board. We made those adjustments on the size of the dwelling. Everything else from an engineering standpoint stayed typically the same. It's a nice addition. This existing rear yard has a patio and pool. None of that's changing. The buffer's not changing. None of the proposed improvements are changing there. Just made the house a little smaller, tweaked the plan slightly in the back, and that's really what you're looking for in front of you tonight.
Is there any questions of the engineer?
Does anyone on the board have any questions for Mr. DuPont? Mrs. Dave?
Benji, you got any questions?
No? Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next witness would be both our architect and planner, if she could be sworn in.
Raise your hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes,
And
I do.
please state your full name for the record.
Jennifer Wenson Mayer.
Can you just briefly provide your qualifications?
Yes, I'm an architect and planner in the state of New Jersey, and I've been in practice since '82. And I've testified before boards, Union County, Middlesex County, and I've also was on the planning board for Metuchen.
Okay. And your licenses are current and in good standing?
Yes, they are.
Great, thank you. You may proceed.
I guess we don't have an easel here?
No.
Okay, hold it up. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Can we borrow this one? And I think board usually has it over here on the right?
Yes, please. And then also, if you could just bring a microphone out with it.
All right.
Okay, so what you see here, the front elevation has not changed much from where we had before. We do have a second floor we built over the garage, and the only other thing we did was put a cover over the front entry because right now the rain just sheets down the front area. And in the front of the prayer room, we did a 1.5-story bay instead of what had been there, which was just a 1-story bay window. In the back, though, it's actually pretty significantly different because before we had a master bedroom suite. Basically, we had a much higher presence in the backyard than we do now because now all you have on the back is a 1-story addition. So in the plan, hold on one second. One thing that I
Excuse me,
discussed.
one second.
Oh.
Mr. Wiley, these are all submitted with the application or no? Do they need to be marked?
I believe the colored renderings have to be marked. So it probably
So
should
the
be
color
A1,
render, okay, so front elevation color rendering will be A1,
rear
and
will
A2 will be the rear.
Will be the rear.
I'll need copies for the board secretary.
Yes.
We do have,
I'm sorry.
And just for the purpose of the record, you're referring to what attachment in the sketch? What page number are you referring to there?
Oh, so this is A1. And did you want me to mark this?
Well, it's already been marked. It's been submitted as A1, but this way, for the purpose of the record, we know that it was A1 in the sketches.
Okay, and the renderings, you should all have copies of the renderings, just at a smaller scale. Okay, so when I was here last time, I talked about the importance of a handicapped person feeling at home in their home and not feeling like there's any barriers in their way, and also feeling like they're a part of the family. So while I did reduce the square footage of the first floor, as you'll be able to see from the circles here, the handicapped suite is fully handicapped. The circles represent a 5-foot turning radius. Also, at the entrances to the kitchen, there's a 5-foot turning radius, and there's a 48-inch circle around the dining table to allow for handicapped access. There is an elevator. There will be one to the basement. It's not shown in the plans because there's a column in the way, and I have to work that out with the structural engineer, but there will be one. So I feel, and on the second floor,
And again, if you could just refer to the page number?
That microphone.
You need the microphone. Thank you.
So on drawing A2, this portion of the upstairs, behind what's now the master bedroom in this plan, used to go all the way to the back. So we did a much smaller master bedroom, master bath, master closet, and we also reduced the size of the bathrooms for their daughters. So that's really the major change. The lower profile in the back may be more appealing for the neighbors because they won't have a two-story height anywhere. So we feel we've come up with still a beautiful plan for the owners and definitely for their parents, and still kept the integrity of the design so that it's a nice house for the town.
I think next we would go into the planning testimony.
Can we actually, let's see if the board has any questions
Okay.
for her as
Or
an
the
architect.
architect.
Yeah,
Okay,
no one.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Winston Mayer on the architecturals? All right. Mr. Dave?
So you are still pouring the basement the way it was before? The basement,
Yeah,
back of the basement is still going to be an open space?
The back of the basement, correct, yes. We need the foundation around the entire thing because the finished floor is about 4 feet out of the ground.
And what's the use of that open space? Are you planning to finish it later on?
Yes, the basement, what they're thinking of doing, they currently have a sort of a little movie theater downstairs, and they're thinking of moving that and making it a little larger. They also have exercise equipment downstairs, so they would probably move that into the new space also.
Right, so is that considered as an FAR when they finish the space? No. It's a basement, right? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dave. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, all right, you may jump to planning testimony.
Actually, John's going to do that.
Oh, okay. Two planners. I didn't know who drew the short straw.
So again,
And, again, for the purpose of the record, you also have a PP in addition to your PE, am I correct?
that is correct.
We,
And in
we,
good standing.
we accepted them as for
Yes.
both.
Thank you.
So we went through the planning testimony last time, but I'll just hit the highlights if that's okay with the board. If you have any questions, I'll certainly be here. The new variances, there are a rear yard setback, allowable 30, proposed 15.8. And we have the maximum building coverage as well as impervious coverage being over the allowable. So it's a C2 case, in my opinion. We have a client that lives on the site and wants to continue to do that. The property is within the residential neighborhood with housing on each side and county open space to the rear. The project will have no negative impacts on the side yard since all the side yard setbacks are being maintained. The rear of the property is up against a restricted open space area and therefore has a significant buffer which will not be impacted. The impervious coverage is being reduced, which will reduce the runoff, and the building coverage, although increasing, is replacing a pool and patio, and no buffer or green space being negatively impacted. There's several purposes of the MLUL we feel this project advances. Purpose A, C, and E. I can certainly go into that if you'd like. But we think clearly the benefits of the project will outweigh any negative impacts on the surrounding properties. The variances can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. The only property that will even see a difference would be the property which can see the restricted area to the back of the property. And now you've heard the architect, we've now lowered that to a single-story addition. So we've made significant impacts and changes to the proposed addition. We have a current owner looking to expand their living space to accommodate their grandparents moving in with them. This is not a builder clearing a large site and building an oversized house. They are proposing this for their elderly parents and for their family to stay in the community. As far as the floor area ratio goes, that is a D variance. Initially, we came in with a proposed floor area ratio of 0.729. We heard the board loud and clear that was too significant. We reduced that house. We are now at 0.597. That is the reason why we're in front of this board. And we're dealing with this homeowner that wants to stay in their home. We've taken necessary changes, we felt direction from the board to make those changes to make a better plan. We think this site is particularly well suited for the expansion, again, up against the open space. All the side setbacks are being maintained. The light, air, and open space is being maintained. With respect to negative criteria, we don't see any negative impacts. Feel the MLUL is being advanced. I feel like granting the relief will result in no substantial detriment to the public good, and the benefits of deviation will substantially outweigh the detriment. Finally, I will say that the granting of the variance will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the zone plan or the zoning ordinance. I know it was a little brief and quick, but if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Dupont? Okay, all right, seeing none.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Wa- Thank you. Mr. Wiley?
That concludes our case,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, we'll now go out to the public. Anybody within 200 feet of the subject property wanting to be heard. If you're within 200 feet, you have received a notice of this meeting via certified mail. Seeing none, we will go outside of 200 feet of the property. Anyone wanting to be heard? Seeing none. Chair will entertain a motion to close the public portion.
Motion to close public portion.
Second.
Motion made by Vice Chairman O'Gorman, seconded by Mr. Patel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Public portion is now closed. Mr. Wiley, you have a summation?
I think it speaks for itself.
Okay, all right, then I'll
You've
go
got
to
a busy agenda.
I'll go to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the application. Application will comply with the engineer's report. And this has very de minimis request. It is not a detrimental to the neighborhood. It enhances the neighborhood. And there's no objection from the neighbors.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Dave, seconded by Vice Chairman O'Gorman. Roll call, please.
Mr. Chhabra?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Barone?
Yes.
Mr. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Hernandez Prince?
Yes.
Mr. DeVay?
Yes to the motion.
Vice Chair O'Gorman?
Yes.
And Chairman Kumba.
Yes on the motion.
you very
Congratulations.
much.
I just want to thank you for working with the board on your reductions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much for your time.
All right, next on the agenda, we're going to go to closed session. If the secretary will announce the notice of closed session.
Going to closed session for Daniel's Law on discussion.
Motion to go into closed session.
Motion. Go in closed session.
Second.
Motion made by Vice Chairman O'Gorman, seconded by Mr. Patel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay. The ayes have it. We in closed session. We don't expect to be long, folks. Can I get a motion to reconvene?
Motion to reconvene.
Second.
Motion made by Vice Chairman O'Gorman, seconded by Mr. Patel. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We return to public session. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be recusing myself on this next case, and I'll be turning the proceedings over to Vice Chairman O'Gorman.
Good evening. Madam Clerk?
Case number Z36, 2022, Tivid Lane LLC, 114 to 132 Tivid Lane East. Applicant is seeking preliminary and final site plan approval along with a use D and bulk variances. Applicant proposes to expand the existing warehouse, which has not been in a permitted use in this zone. Standards that have not been met in accordance with the master plan. Max building coverage permitted is .23, proposed is .50, whereas .36 is existing. Max lot coverage permitted is .4, proposed is .71, whereas .56 is existing. Max FAR permitted is .44, proposed is .50. Affected property is located in the RB zone designated as block number 795.03, lot number 9 on the Edison Township tax map. All noticing paperwork is in order.
Okay, yeah, proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jason Tuvel, attorney for the applicant from the law firm of Prime and Tuvel. This is an application for Tivid Lane LLC, block 795.03, lot 9. The tenant there, or the operator there, is C&A Global. They are a business that has over 150 employees currently located at the site. They deal in innovative electronics, intelligent housewares, other certain gadgets, and other items. They have a warehouse distribution facility currently located at the property, which is a pre-existing non-conforming use in the zone in which the property is located. The goal here is to modernize and improve the existing warehouse that has been there for many decades, and we'll go over some of the history of the property as well. And to do that and to allow it to be a continued asset both for C&A Global and for the community, the building, as you'll hear testimony, needs to be modernized in many respects, primarily with respect to the building height, with respect to the way that the functionality of the building works, loading docks, and other means. So the goal here with this application was to improve the facility, but at the same time improve the site for both the applicant as well as the surrounding properties. So what you'll hear through our witnesses that we plan on calling is the following. We're significantly improving stormwater management on the property as a result of working within the current stormwater management regulations per DEP, as well as the township. We're going to be separating vehicular and truck traffic in connection with this application. Right now, there is vehicular and regular truck traffic that coincide. We're going to be separating that as part of this application, so you'll see that. The landscaping will be tremendously upgraded as part of this application, which will include the buffers to the residential properties, as well as an aesthetic improvement in that regard. Same with the lighting, which will be modernized to be LED efficient, more environmentally friendly. The building aesthetics have been a big part of the application. The removal of I'll call it a sign or a billboard located on the rear of the structure. But what I'll say is that the main improvement from a site perspective that you'll hear about is the fact that all of the loading facilities in the proposed condition will be located facing the turnpike and not facing the residential properties. Whereas in the current location, many of the loading facilities face right onto Tivid Lane or face in the parking lot where there's residential neighbors right next to it. So we think that those improvements are significant and an enhancement both for the applicant as well as for the surrounding properties. From an operational standpoint, the goal is for this building to stay the same with regards to hours of operation. Right now, it's 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday. That's not going to change. And 9 to 2 on Fridays. It is closed on Saturday. And on Sundays, they only really open during the holiday season when things are busy. So those hours of operation are not meant to change, and we'll We'll get into more details on that through testimony. So I have 5 witnesses that will be called throughout the course of this application. I believe we're only going to reach 4 of them this evening. But I have the co-founder and CEO, Chaim Pierkowski, who is going to testify in connection with operations. I have James Henry from Dynamic Engineering, who's our civil engineer, who will go through a lot of the items that I just mentioned, the layout of the building, parking areas, stormwater management, etc. Craig Paragoy from Dynamic Traffic. He has conducted a traffic study and a parking study in connection with this application. You'll hear his testimony in that regard. We also have Charles Dietz, who's our architect. He'll go through the building changes and the modifications that we're making. And then finally, our professional planner is Christine Cafone, who will do all the variance testimony associated with the project. We've reviewed the board professional letters. We believe we can work with them on all the comments that they provided therein. So, Mr. Chairman, if there's no questions for me, I'd be happy to get this started and call our first witness, who will be James Henry with Dynamic Engineering. We do have some exhibits that will pass out during the course of the application, which are demonstrative in nature to help the board and the public understand the project better.
Proceed.
Okay. So the first witness I'd like to call, who we should swear in, is James Henry from Dynamic Engineering, and I will be qualifying him as a civil engineer, licensed civil engineer in the state of New Jersey.
Mr. Henry, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And please state your full name for the record. You will have to speak into the microphone.
Sure. James Henry, Henry.
Okay. You'd like me to qualify him, counsel? Okay. Jim, if you could just give the board the benefit of your credentials, educational background, licenses held, and experience testifying as a civil engineer in the state of New Jersey.
Sure. Thank you. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering from Rutgers University with a minor in Public Planning. I have a Master's of Science in Civil Engineering from Rutgers University with a focus in hydrology as well as construction management. I'm a licensed civil engineer in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, as well as New York. I'm also a licensed professional planner in New Jersey. As far as experience, I've been employed by Dynamic Engineering for over 17 years, and I've focused specifically in commercial, industrial, and residential projects. I've been accepted as an expert in the field of civil engineering by over 70 boards throughout New Jersey, including Edison.
And your license is current and in good standing?
Yes.
I would respectfully
We'll
request.
accept this qualification.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that. All right, Mr. Henry or Jim, why don't we get the board started just on existing conditions at the property and a little bit of a, I guess, an overview of the prior history and how the building came to be.
Sure, absolutely. I'm just going to reference Exhibit A1, which is a color aerial exhibit, and that's dated August 29th, 2023.
I'll pass it out.
Great.
So these are just 11 by 17s, Mr. Chairman, of what's on the board right over there.
Have these already been submitted previously?
These are
These
just.
are new, so
yeah.
A1 dated August 29th.
Thank you, Counsel. No. Should I give Eve one? Here, here's an extra one over there.
As was mentioned earlier, the property we're talking about tonight is block 795.03, lot 9. Our client is CNA Global, with the applicant being Tivid Lane LLC. The property, referencing A1, is located in the RB residential district. The use is a warehouse use. There's an existing use on site that was constructed sometime between 1957 and 1963. One thing to note, that the warehouse precedes a lot of the residential development that does happen around it. We have a couple of aerial exhibits which we're going to show you, just showing the historical development of the neighborhood and how development kind of occurred around the actual warehouse. It's located near the intersection of 287 and the New Jersey Turnpike along Tivid Lane East. Adjacent uses, basically there's residential uses to the north, to the south is the New Jersey Turnpike. To the north is Tivid Lane East, with some residential properties on the other side of Tivid Lane East. There are some residential properties to the east of the site with a roundabout ramp from the turnpike just beyond that. And then to the west is residential uses, and then there's also Morris Avenue, which I think was this big discussion point with our meeting with the neighbors that we had a few weeks ago.
So, Jim, I should have asked you this, but this exhibit was prepared by your office and under your supervision?
Yes, it was.
All right, and you visited the site and surrounding area multiple times?
I have.
Great, thank you.
So as mentioned, the existing warehouse, we're going to be modifying the existing warehouse. We'll go into the details of the modification. We just wanted to get everyone comfortable with the surrounding uses as well as the surrounding streets. Now we're just going to show the historical aerials, and we'll mark those A2 and A3. A1 will be the aerial map exhibit. And then A2 will be the 1957 historical aerial. This is a historical aerial which we purchased from historicalaerials.com, showing the aerial at 80 scale. So that'll be marked A2. And then A3 will be a historic aerial exhibit 1963. And that's dated August 29, 2023, and that also is at 80 scale. And that'll be A3.
All right, and Jim, if you could just go through those exhibits one at a time and just explain what's shown on there.
Sure. Referencing A2, you can see we've basically brought in the property lines from the other exhibit and rescaled the aerial approximately based on the limits of the property line. You can see on A2, Morris Avenue is already in existence. It's an undeveloped farm. Surrounding it is mostly undeveloped farms. And there is a small house at the end of Morris Avenue, which I believe actually still exists today on a current aerial. Then referencing A3, again, you have the property line brought in on the aerial. It shows a dashed line around the outside of the property showing the 200 foot. Again, on 1963, you can see the warehouse is constructed. There is a large parking area associated with the warehouse, approximately where it exists today. There is activity on either side, on the east side and the west side of the building as it exists today, and that there are no residential uses around the warehouse.
All right, why don't we go back to A1, which is the aerial, and we can just go through some of the existing conditions, or if you want to use the survey, either way.
Yeah, I'll use the aerial. It's fine.
Okay, so you're going back to A1, correct?
Going back to A1, yes.
Okay.
So as mentioned earlier, the warehouse use is an existing non-conforming use within the zone. From a lot area perspective, the lot area requirement in the zone is 7,500 square feet. And the total lot area for the lot in question is 706,244 square feet. So it's significantly oversized for the zone. It's very unique in nature compared to the zone it's in. From a building coverage perspective, the existing building, there's a maximum of 23% permitted, and the existing building coverage is 36%, and 40%. So there's an existing nonconformity there, being that 23% is permitted and 36% is already existing. From an impervious coverage standpoint, 40% is the maximum allowed, and the existing is 56%. So again, that's an existing nonconformity. And from a topographic standpoint, the topography of the site is overall fairly flat as you head north to south or west to east. There are 2 access points on Tivit Lane East. There is a receiving area near the northeasterly corner of near the driveway, the northeastern corner. And there's another driveway at the northwestern corner, which has a mix of passenger cars as well as trucks. The main entrance is located near the southerly property line. Approximately where my cursor is, there's a main entrance to the office building. And then there's a parking area just to the south of the main entrance.
All right, so Jim, just to reiterate, just I think some important factors on the existing building, just indicate where the where the loading area is facing Tivit Lane East and what that faces.
Sure. So the loading area facing Tivit Lane East is facing north, and that's facing residential uses. When trucks do load, they circulate basically in the area at the northeastern corner of the site, and they basically load in this general area where you can see my cursor at the northeastern corner. There's also another receiving area. There's another area which loading occurs. It's kind of in the center of the westerly property line. Trucks load in to this area, just in the center of the westerly property line, immediately adjacent to the main entrance.
Okay, and that's visible from the residential areas located to the west.
Yes.
Okay.
There's very little buffer on the northeasterly corner to the adjacent residential uses, and then there is a decent buffer along the westerly property line. There's a fence. There's a number of shade trees along the westerly property line, so I think that's actually decently buffered. But on the easterly side, there's fairly limited buffering. There's 5 loading docks on each of those 2 locations that I just mentioned, and the shipping is located on the west side, and the receiving is located on the Tivit Lane side. From a parking perspective, there's 177 total parking spaces required based on the square footage that's existing, and there are 166 spaces existing. So there's an existing nonconformity from a parking perspective. There is an outdoor storage area which is located on the easterly side of the building, where there's some outdoor storage occurring under the existing conditions. We're looking to remove that as part of the proposed conditions. And then there's also an existing loading area which is located along the westerly property line, almost across from the loading area on the westerly property line. And that striped area is to remain, but the loading area is primarily going to be maintained for more like UPS trucks and things like that, whereas right now it's more utilized for tractor trailers, those kind of deliveries.
Typical warehouse functions.
Correct. As you can see on the aerial, there's existing solar on the building, which I believe our client is going to try and maintain as best possible. From a utilities perspective, there's a generator on site. That's located near the southeasterly corner of the building. It's in very close proximity to the residential uses, and we're going to be relocating that as part of this application further away from the residential uses. There's also a large water tower. If you go on site, just to the south of the paved area, that water tower is fairly unsightly. I was on site today, and we're going to be removing that as part of this application. It's probably, my guess is it's probably 30 or 40 feet high. From a trash perspective, trash does come through with a trash compactor near the southeasterly corner of the building. There's 2 compactors located there. Again, we're locating it to the southern side of the building. As Mr. Tuvell had mentioned, most of the activity we're trying to push towards the New Jersey Turnpike. If you go out to the site and you stand near, if you look at A1 where PIQ is, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of activity just from the Turnpike. There's almost a constant hum just from the Turnpike activity adjacent to the building. So we're trying to move all the activity that could be considered a nuisance or something along those lines to the southerly side of the building, pulling it away from the adjacent residential uses. From a fencing perspective around the outside, there is a chain link fence which is along the northerly property line. The chain link fence then transitions to a board-on-board fence, which is fairly decorative along the westerly property line. The board-on-board fence, you can see on the next exhibit I'm going to show, the board-on-board fence is pulled approximately 10 or 15 feet away from the property line. So the neighbors on the westerly property line actually have 10 or 15 feet of area where they can plant, and there's trees in order to provide adequate buffer to the adjacent use, although it is owned by our property. So our fence is off the property line fairly significantly in that area. So along the westerly property line, there is a decorative fence. As you get towards New Jersey Turnpike, there's approximately a 6-foot high chain link fence which goes along that right of way and then kind of goes to the north. As you go to the north, it transitions between approximately a 4 to 6 foot high chain link fence along the easterly property line. The easterly property line really doesn't have a ton of buffering. There isn't, you can see right into the residential backyards, which is something we're going to change under the proposed conditions. There is an existing sign and existing billboard on the south side of the building facing New Jersey Turnpike. We're going to be removing that as part of this application. There are a number of drainage easements which exist on the property. There is an easement which basically runs through the westerly parking lot, runs north-south, and then it connects into a pipe which goes into Morris Avenue. And then there's another easement, drainage easement, which runs along the southerly property line, which connects to what appears to be a drainage basin located just beyond Ginger Drive. In addition to that, there is a railroad easement which runs from north to south along the easterly driveway. And all those easements are more or less to remain. We are slightly changing one of the drainage easements and just shifting it over based on the development we're doing. I know that in Edison there is a lot of discussion about the Colonial Pipeline. The Colonial Pipeline does come fairly close to this site. It travels in the just south of the property in the New Jersey Turnpike. We were able to pull those deeds and the easements that are within the New Jersey Turnpike, and we've shown them on our plan and show that the Colonial Pipeline does not come onto our property. We've also added notes onto our plan to make sure that Colonial Pipeline witnesses all the construction that's in the vicinity of the Colonial Pipeline. From a utility perspective, there is, as I mentioned, there is actually two gas lines. There's an Elizabethtown gas line within New Jersey Turnpike, and there's also the Colonial Pipeline. Our gas services connects near the southeasterly corner of the property. Our water service connects through Morris Avenue. There's a water line that comes out Morris Avenue and then connects to our water facilities on site. On sewer, we connect near the northeasterly corner of the building onto Tivid Lane East, and electric also comes through Morris Avenue. And for the proposed conditions, we're going to reference Exhibit A4.
So Jim, the proposed condition is the site plan rendered with landscaping superimposed, correct?
Yes, it's entitled The Overall Site Plan Rendering, dated August 29th, 2023, prepared by Dynamic Engineering. So for this exhibit, north will be to the top of the ceiling, south will be towards the floor, similar to the other exhibits. More or less, we're going to be seeking preliminary major site plan approval from the Edison Zoning Board to basically do a modification to the existing building. It's going to be expanding the square footage of the building by approximately 94,000 square feet. And the total building area will expand to 350,000 or 378,930 square feet gross floor area. There is going to be a mezzanine area, which is going to consist of some office space. The first floor is going to consist of approximately 334,914 square feet. And there is an existing 15,413 square foot office on the first floor. The second floor consists of 28,603 square feet of office, which is an increase of approximately 15,000 square feet from existing, for a total office space of approximately 44,016 square feet. Additional improvements include new parking areas, drive aisles, landscaping, lighting, stormwater improvements, relocation of loading docks, and utilities. As I mentioned earlier, the use is an existing nonconforming use. So we're going to be seeking a D2 variance, which is an expansion of a non-conforming use. From a bulk standard criteria, there are a few variances that are required, but generally speaking, we've tried to basically maintain the same kind of square that was existing today. The building that was out there today really, if you look at it, if you look at A4, it's kind of an odd shape. There's a lot of jogs in it. And basically what we're looking to do, and our architect will get into the specifics of everything, but we're more or less trying to square it out and modernize it. If you went out there today, it does look like it needs a facelift. It needs to be improved. There have been some improvements done by our client as far as adding some modifications to the building, but more or less, the building doesn't really conform to what you would generally consider warehouse standards, in 2023. So the expansion, as I mentioned, would include expansion of the building. So we'll be expanding the building from 36% under the existing conditions, 23% is allowed per the residential zoning, and 50% is proposed, which is approximately what's allowed in the LI district. So I'm just going to reference the LI district, being that obviously this is residentially zoned. It's been a warehouse itself for a number of years, but the LI zone is the closest thing we can see as far as something that you can use for comparison-wise for this type of use. So what we did was we pulled the LI zoning and kind of use that as a reference as you go through the bulk standards. So for an FAR perspective, floor area ratio, 0.44 is permitted, 0.36 is existing, 0.54 is what we are proposing, and 0.50 is what's allowed in the LI zone. So it's roughly what the LI zone allows. And then from an impervious coverage standpoint, 56% is existing, 40% is allowed in the residential zone, 71% is proposed, and we're proposing below what is allowed in the LI zone, which is 80%. From a building height perspective, 32 foot is allowed for the residential zone. And I'm sure our planner will get into the fact that obviously a lot of these residential standards are meant for residential uses. They're not made for this type of use. And our planner will actually get into it and kind of explain, why we are for the justifications for these variances. But the building height proposed is approximately 46.63 feet, whereas 32 is permitted in the residential zone and 45 is permitted in the LI zone. So that's a quick summary on the bulk standards, but just from an access perspective, this is the real meat of this is access and the improvements and really the impacts to the immediate neighbors. So as we went over, the westerly side of the building is where the existing loading docks exists and the northeastern corner of the building. That is being shifted to the south side of the building. You can see the loading docks are now facing New Jersey Turnpike on the south side of the building. And then there's a nice drive aisle proposed along the easterly side of the building with a nice, almost a cul-de-sac just at the end of the drive aisle, which allows all of the truck traffic to be pushed to the east side of the building. So there will not be any trucks on the west side of the building. I know a lot of the neighbors were concerned as from an access perspective, whether or not Morris Avenue, a driveway on Morris Avenue was going to be proposed. There is no real modification to Morris Avenue at all. In fact, we're going to be additionally buffering that. We're not proposing any connection to Morris Avenue from a vehicular standpoint. I just want to make that 100% clear. We're basically maintaining the two driveways on Tivid Lane East. Slight modification to the northeasterly driveway just to allow for trucks to come in and out safely. But there's going to be a significant separation between the passenger traffic, which is going to be on the westerly side of the building, and now all your truck traffic will be on the east side of the building, which I think is an improvement because these trucks are not going to be loading and unloading on either side of the building, which is where the residential uses are. All the loading is going to occur, again, on the south side of the building, and all the truck activity is going to be on the south side of the building. And as you can see on the aerial, if you look at Ginger Drive, more or less there's 3 or 4 houses here, but then there's a large detention basin just to the south of the residential uses off Ginger Drive, which is, again, if you were to go directly parallel, directly to the east of where the loading docks are, that is where the detention basin or the wetland area exists off-site in the residential development. So all that activity is going to be pushed towards where no one lives, and it's going to have the minimum amount of impact out of any other location that's on the site being the site has residential uses on 3 sides.
All right, so Jim, if you could just go to A1, which was the aerial.
One second, I lost the arrow.
Yep.
There we go.
You can leave it on the, okay. So just indicate where the loading area on the northerly side of the building is going to be relocated or eliminated.
Sure. So the loading area, again, is located at the northeasterly corner of the building, facing north. And the other loading area is facing west, about near the midpoint of the westerly property line. So now, under the proposed conditions, there's a large grass area on the south side of the building, which is going to be modified to allow for the truck traffic to be located in that area, which I mentioned earlier, where I was standing today and there was almost a constant hum just from the turnpike traffic. That's where we're trying to locate all the truck activity so that it has the least amount of impact to the residential uses.
Okay, and if you could just go through a description of the loading area in the back as well.
Sure. I'm just going to go over parking real quick before we go into that. So from A4, we are proposing 259 parking spaces are required, and we're proposing 199 plus 8 EV parking spaces, which comes out to 207 parking spaces with the EV credit. That is a variance. Our traffic engineer will get into the justification of that variance. We did do a parking study in order to basically determine what the parking demand requirements are today and what we're projecting to be the future conditions. From a loading dock perspective, I know there was a lot of discussion. Again, we had a neighborhood meeting. We heard a lot of the neighbors' comments about the loading docks, buffering to the loading docks, and we really tried to incorporate a lot of them into this exhibit. So we had under the existing conditions, approximately 10 loading docks, 5 on the west side and 5 on the north side. And we're proposing 23 loading docks on the south side of the building, which will allow for more efficient use of the loading docks for the trucks aren't waiting. I've been out to the site under the existing conditions. There are trucks waiting to get into the facility. It's a very inefficient truck loading design, whereas this is more of a traditional loading dock design. The loading docks themselves will be 4 feet high. They'll be on the south side of the building. There'll be 60 by 12 loading spaces so the trucks can park their trailers, get in there safely. And then there's a 70-foot truck court directly adjacent to that. Under the existing conditions, the trucks have to circulate. They have to go back, forth. They have to almost use Tivit Lane as a staging area in order to access the loading docks. What we are doing with this revised design is the trucks come in, they go along Tivit Lane East, they go along the easterly property line, they come in the back. They can either turn around or they can pull straight in and back into the loading docks. There's adequate room. We've designed this up to current standards, current 2023 standards, whereas right now there's not sufficient room for the trucks to adequately circulate into the loading docks. So we designed them for WB67 trucks. All the activity is going to be pushed to the easterly side of the building. As Mr. Tuvell had mentioned, the hours of operation, and I want to make sure everyone's clear on this, the current hours of operation are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Friday, close on Saturday, and close on Sunday, except during peak holiday seasons. So those are the hours where there's activity. And we're looking to maintain those same operational hours. We're not looking to expand them to, a 24-hour use or whatever it might be. We're not looking to expand that. From a truck idling perspective, we had a neighborhood meeting regarding this particular project, and there was approximately about 50 people that came out and gave us their thoughts and gave us a lot of feedback. And our traffic engineer was probably the person that received most of the comments. But one of the comments I'm just going to bring up, there was a lot of comments about trucks idling and basically staging in Tivit Lane East and the nuisance that occurred in Tivit Lane East with trucks being outside along the northerly property line. With this plan, we're looking to basically remove that so that all the truck activity is on the back. So they pull in, they come in the back, there's enough loading docks, and it's sufficiently designed so you can get in and out. You're not sitting there waiting for trucks to do a K-turn as they're standing there waiting for everyone to get in line. In addition, our client is willing to basically have a security truck out there monitoring the Tivit Lane East to make sure that there are not trucks idling out there if it does occur early in the morning, which I think is a significant improvement over what happens today. We're also looking to add no idling truck signage. Again, this isn't within the right-of-way, so this would be subject to municipal approval, but we're seeking to add no truck idling and no truck signs down each of the northerly streets. So Elder Avenue, Daffodil Drive, and I'm going to mess up Chocoberry Drive. There you go, Chokeberry. We're looking to put no truck signs so that we clearly delineate that there are no trucks allowed down those roads. We heard from the neighbors when we had the neighborhood meeting that occasionally a truck would go down there and it would create a nuisance for them. So we're looking to make sure that it's very clear.
Excuse me. Can we have quiet, please? We can't hear him. Thank you. And can you put the mic closer?
Yes, sorry. We're trying to make sure it's very clear where the trucks have to go. We're not proposing a modification to where the trucks are going. They're basically going to the west, and then they're heading up to Pearson Avenue. From a trash perspective, another improvement. Right now, the trash trucks basically are directly adjacent to the residential use along the easterly side of the building. We're pulling the compactors to the back side of the building. 2 of the loading docks are being occupied with compactors, and we're going to comply with the Township of Edison Solid Waste Management Plan, as well as the state and county recycling mandates. The generators are also being shifted to the south. Right now, the generators are adjacent to the houses on Ginger Drive, so we're going to be shifting them to the south, directly adjacent to the loading area, to pull them further away from the residential uses on Ginger Drive. From a utility standpoint, the utilities more or less are staying the same. We're connecting to the utilities, as I mentioned earlier, where they exist today. There aren't significant changes to the utilities under the proposed conditions.
And when you say utilities, Jim, just so everybody's clear, you're talking about gas, water, sewer, and electric, correct?
Correct. There is some instances where we're relocating the lines, but generally speaking, the connections are occurring in the same locations as the existing facilities.
Okay.
From a stormwater perspective, I know Mr. Tufel had mentioned that we are making a significant improvement. One thing we are doing, this is considered a major development, so we are disturbing over an acre of land with the proposed development. So when you are considered a major development, you have to comply with the New Jersey state stormwater rules. And as everyone knows, on the board knows, they're very strict. They're very there's a lot of regulations involved in them. So what we've proposed to do, we did geotechnical testing as part of their initial investigation in order to determine the most economical and the most beneficial way to treat the stormwater runoff. And what we're looking to do is we're proposing a constructed wetlands, which is located just to the south of the passenger parking area. And that will basically be a vegetated detention basin that will have vegetation in there that helps remove pollutants and helps improve water quality from existing conditions.
And Jim, does the current site comply with the DEP standards that have been implemented in the last few years?
It doesn't. The whole site is grandfathered. So there's really no treatment at all for the stormwater that's on site today. And this is a really significant improvement in what we're proposing here. One thing to mention, so I know there was a flyer that was handed around. I want to make sure everyone's very clear as far as the improvements and the stormwater impacts. So,
okay, I'm just going to stop you for a moment.
Sure.
The board can't consider any flyers, so no flyers were given to the board, so please don't.
Okay.
So Jim, just stick with just describing the stormwater management
I apologize. So for the 2-year storm, There is a 50% reduction in the amount of stormwater runoff from the existing conditions. So for the 2-year storm, we're allowed to have 16.4 CFS, and we're proposing 15.2 CFS. So we are compliant for the 2-year storm. For the 10-year storm, we're required to reduce the stormwater runoff by 25%, and that we reduce the stormwater runoff we're allowed to reduce it to 32%, to 32 CFS, and we're proposing way less than that at 23 CFS. So that's a significant improvement, significantly above the 25% required by the DEP. And for the 100-year storm, we're required to do a 20% reduction in flow rate, and that's we're allowed to have a 60.9 CFS, and we're proposing 51.84 CFS. So as you can see, we are compliant with the state rules. We are improving the stormwater runoff rate reductions from the site. From a stormwater perspective, the stormwater is routed to the wetland area. And then there is an existing drainage area, existing drainage pipe, as I mentioned, that runs north-south and also east-west, which we're connecting into after the water is treated by that basin.
So Jim, we're reducing runoff above and beyond what's required by DEP?
Yes.
Okay. And we're also providing water quality for the treatment as well, correct?
There is water quality aspects of the constructed wetlands, yes.
Okay. Do you see any negative impacts to the surrounding properties in terms of stormwater management as it relates to this application?
No, I don't.
Do you see an improvement to stormwater management as it relates to this application?
Yes.
Okay.
From a lighting perspective, we're looking to upgrade the overall lighting throughout the existing and the proposed parking areas. We're upgrading the lighting to be all LED. We're proposing a number of new fixtures on site. The main thing we were focused on when we prepared the lighting plan was to basically minimize the amount, again, the same trend as the other items, to minimize the impact to the neighbors to the north, to the east, and to the west. So what we did was we proposed shoebox downward-facing lights, basically to minimize the amount of light pollution, which I believe was a comment of your engineer that it's dark sky compliant. We did that. We also went to the TRC meeting where we received some recommendations from Mr. Carley as far as some modifications that might be a good idea from a lighting perspective, and we've incorporated those. So overall, we basically located a number of lights around the perimeter of the site. We have 0-foot candles along all of the residential property lines, and the parking areas have been designed to meet IES standards. Approximately, we're roughly looking to construct approximately 20 to 30 lights within the parking areas. And we did talk to our client. There was a comment, I believe, in the planner or the engineer's letter as far as turning off lights, because right now there are lights, I think, running 24/7 on site. And our client is open to basically shutting off some of the lights, but leaving some security lights just overnight to make sure from a safety perspective.
So Jim, when you talk about LED downward facing and dark sky compliant, just explain what that means from a benefit perspective.
Sure. So if you had like a light going 45 degrees, what ends up happening is if you have enough of them, it creates a glow effect in the sky. So at nighttime, you really can't see the stars, and it kind of creates an impact. So what we do with the newer lights is we have them fully downward facing, pointed to the ground, so that there's no light glow.
And you don't see the illumination source.
Correct. From a landscaping perspective and also a fence perspective, this is probably the biggest significant impact I think the neighbors will appreciate. We're looking to plant a lot of landscaping around the perimeter of the site to help buffer this use. We are proposing an 8-foot high white vinyl fence along the easterly property line near where the new drive aisle is proposed. Right now, there's approximately a 4 to 6 foot high chain link fence, which is, you can really see right into the neighbors' backyards. So we're looking to properly buffer that. In addition to that, we are also proposing an entire line of double row evergreen trees along that easterly property line. And the reason we're really looking to buffer that area, I think it's it creates, right now it's got almost no buffering, and we're looking to really minimize the impact to those neighbors on that side. And one thing that our client, I think based on some discussions we had with the board planner as well as the board engineer, typically you install evergreen trees at a height of, approximately 3 feet. Our client's willing to install those evergreen trees at a height of 8 to 10 feet along that entire property line. So overall, we're proposing 3 shade trees, 13 ornamental trees, 142 evergreen trees, 223 deciduous shrubs, and 41 ornamental grasses. There is a parking lot tree ordinance in the Township of Edison. We are compliant with that, and we're agreeing to comply with that and plant sufficient amount of trees. There's also a street frontage landscape ordinance, and we're also agreeing to comply with that as well.
So from a landscaping and lighting perspective, do you believe that the proposal is an improvement to the existing condition?
Yes.
Do you see any negative impacts from a lighting or a landscape design perspective to the residents nearby?
I do not.
Okay.
From a signage perspective, I think we mentioned earlier, if you look at A1, there is a large billboard located along the southerly side of the building, and there's also a sign on the southerly side of the building. Under the proposed conditions referencing A4, we're really only proposing, we have one small sign, which is similar to the one that's out there today at the entrance, the westerly entrance on Tivid Lane. We're proposing another sign, a freestanding sign, located along the easterly entrance on Tivid Lane. The first sign, which is the westerly entrance, is 25 square feet, and the other sign, which is the truck entrance, it's very similar to a directional sign. It's 15 square feet, very small. We're very cognizant that we're in a residential neighborhood. From a building perspective, the overall existing signage, including the billboard, we have approximately 2,010 square feet of sign area, and we're reducing that down to 115 square feet of signage. So there is a significant step back in the amount of signage that's out there today. Obviously, again, being very cognizant, and we're very aware that we are in a residential zone, and we are adjacent to residential uses. So the three building signs are being proposed on this northeasterly corner of the building, the northwesterly corner of the building, and above the main entrance, which is located near the southerly side of the west side of the building. Those signs are approximately 57.5 square feet. The two signs for 57.5 square feet, and then there's one existing sign to remain, which is approximately 100 square feet. And there is a variance associated with the sign just because it's of the height of the sign, and that's 9.5 square feet. From an outside approval perspective, there are a number of internal Edison approvals which we need to obtain. There's also approval from the Freehold Soil Conservation District. We do have a plan certification pending. We have a 5G3 NJDEP activity stormwater permit, which we will apply for if we are approved by the board. We have applied to the Middlesex County Planning Board, and we are waiting a response. Actually, I believe we received a response. We're waiting to respond to their review letter, the Middlesex County Planning Board. We submitted an application to the NJDEP to confirm that there are no streams nearby and that the NJAC 7:13 does not regulate this development. And we have an applicability determination confirming that there are no streams and we have no impact. We do not require any sort of stream permit.
What does that mean from a flood perspective, just so everybody's aware?
We're not located within a flood zone, and we're not impacting any sort of flood zone. From NJDEP, we also obtained a wetlands LOI, which confirmed that there is no wetlands on the site and we're not impacting any wetland buffer areas. We also submitted a pipeline certification, and that is pending. We also submitted an application to the New Jersey Turnpike Authority for the proposed improvements, and we did receive conditional approval from them as well. And lastly, we are required to get Middlesex water approval, and we will apply for that if we are granted approval by the board.
And Jim, before you summarize some of the testimony a little bit further, just on that Morris Avenue issue that you mentioned earlier, could you just point on the plan what's located in the area of the property adjacent to Morris Avenue? What's there? So
Sure. Along near the southwesterly corner, as I mentioned, there's already a pretty significant tree buffer, but what we did was we extended, right now the tree buffer ends roughly near the main entrance of the property, and we extended that buffer all along the westerly property line. There were a lot of neighbors, I believe, in that general vicinity from Morris Avenue. Also, I believe from that area along on the westerly property line. And we added a lot of landscaping in that area. There was concern that they would be receiving some impacts from the trucks, which we try to shift all the way to the east side of the building. We didn't continue the truck court the whole southerly side of the building. We tried to keep all the trucks on the easterly side of the building and keep it away from the residential. So we added a tremendous amount of landscaping along both sidelines in order to help buffer the uses.
Okay, so again, no connection to there from a vehicular standpoint.
No connection whatsoever. The only thing in that area we're constructing is a wetland, which will only further emphasize the fact that we are not connecting to Morris Avenue. We're proposing a basin back there. We're not going to be taking out the basin to build a road to Morris Avenue.
Okay, and then from a fire truck perspective, I know you talked about the WB67s, but can a fire truck also circulate the property in the rear and on the side?
Yes, I believe in the site plans that we submitted to the board, there was a fire truck circulation plan, and we can adequately circulate that.
Okay, terrific. All right, can you do a little summary of the improvements?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, I think the big win for the neighborhood as well as just the functioning of the actual facility is that we're modifying the access, and all of the truck traffic is being located to the east side of the building. All of the passenger cars are on the west side of the building. We are separating the passenger vehicles from the truck traffic. It's improved efficiency. We're bringing it up to 2023 standards for loading dock design. There's going to be a decrease in idling truck traffic by the overall queue area that we're proposing on the east side of the building and the south side of the building, trying to pull any trucks that may be stacking onto Tivit Lane East behind the building away from the residential uses. All truck traffic will be directed towards New Jersey Turnpike. We're going to provide signage. Our traffic engineer is going to provide an off-site circulation improvement, off-site improvement plan, where we're going to approach the municipal government about implementing some modifications and providing adequate signage for trucks to direct them out to Pearson Avenue. There is significant improvement from upgrading the existing parking, loading areas, and sidewalks. There's no dead-end parking in the parking areas. The truck traffic will all be directed to the easterly driveway. From a facade perspective, our architect will get into the overall improvements. I think you'll see when our architect does show you the renderings and the elevations of the building itself, there is a significant aesthetic improvement from what is there today. It really helps upgrade the overall facility to 2023 standards. From a signage perspective, we're significantly reducing the amount of signage on site, which I think is an improvement. We're removing the water tower on the side of the building near the residential uses. We're also moving the trash compactor and the generator further away from the residential uses on Ginger Drive. We're proposing new privacy fencing in areas where privacy fencing currently doesn't exist to further buffer the proposed use from the adjacent residential. We're proposing significant stormwater management facilities that will help improve stormwater management within the area and help reduce the risk of flooding. We're adding a significant amount of landscaping and buffering to the adjacent residential uses. And then from a lighting perspective, we're upgrading all the lighting up to LED. We're locating the lights in an area where they don't overflow onto the residential uses. And then we're modifying them all so that they're downward facing so it doesn't create sky glow. We're also offering to shut off the lighting during off-peak hours. And we're offering to add a security unit provided by our client to help keep trucks from idling onto Tivid Lane East. In summary, I think that list is a significant improvement over what exists today. We've worked a lot with your professionals. We had a neighbor meeting. We really spent a lot of hours and a lot of time thinking about how we could really propose this in a manner that it has the least impact to the adjacent residential uses.
Jim, just you've reviewed the letters prepared by the board's professional planner and engineer?
Yes.
Okay, and can you just give some testimony on compliance with those review letters, please?
Sure. I tried to weave a lot of the comments in the review letter into my direct. I believe we're going to comply with anything I didn't mention during the direct testimony. I believe there was a lot of good comments in the review letter, and we'll implement them.
Thank you. I just wanted to get that on the record, that's all.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, so that concludes our direct. We're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, what we're going to do, we're going to go to our professional engineers and planner for Edison Township. So Hank and Charlie, you have any comments on your reports?
Mr. Chairman, is there any environmental concerns with this property presently?
So we did do some research on that. There was a phase one that I believe was done. Let me see my date. There was a phase one from 2015. In that phase one that we did review, it shows there was a no further action issued in 2008 and 2012, and that there was a deed notice placed on the property and a cap was installed near where the existing building is. And but we can provide additional documentation if needed.
So you don't propose any kind of changes to that cap at all, or?
No, and
disturbance in that
if we
area?
end up doing it during the building construction, we'll hire an LSRP to make sure that we're conforming with the state rules.
Are you going to provide traffic testimony? Is that going to be a traffic engineer?
There's going to be a traffic engineer to discuss that.
Okay. And then I assume that the mechanical stuff on the roof, any roof mechanicals?
That's correct, yeah.
There will be, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is that going to be screened? Because the ordinance requires it to be screened.
Yeah, I'll have the architect, Mr. Bignell.
So that's where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I'll have him go through all that, yes.
The Mr. Chairman, the ordinance requires that the pipeline buffering ordinance, that there be no digging within 75 feet. It has to be done by hand. So can you, I know you provided testimony. How close are those high pressure gas lines?
They're off-site. They're approximately 50 feet or so from where we're proposing some curbing. So I think we added, based on some recommendations from Mr. Bignell, we added some notes that basically they have to be out, that the gas company has to be out there witnessing all construction to make sure we're not in the vicinity. The easement doesn't come onto our property, it's off-site, but we're within the 75-foot buffer, which I think is an ordinance requirement.
So, Mr. Chairman, the board's going to grant relief to that. The ordinance says it has to be dug by hand if it's within 75 feet. So if you want to grant him the relief to that, the notes are fine with the pipeline operators being out there. That's important. But that's still something the board has to grant as part of an approval if you grant an approval.
Understood.
All right?
But currently, there is a violation there from Colonial Pipeline, correct?
What's that, sir?
There is an existing violation for the buffer.
Well, he just said it's within 50 feet, so it's a violation from the ordinance, and he's allowed to dig around it, but our ordinance says by hand. If you want to allow him by heavy equipment or backhoes, things like that for curbing, I would strongly suggest that the representatives of any pipeline company be there when they are digging, so if there's any problems, they know immediately.
So that violation is going to stay existing? Is going to stay?
I'm sorry, say that one more
That
time.
violation is going to stay?
So we're asking for relief to go within the 75-foot buffer, and we'll have someone out there from the gas company during that construction to make sure that we're not in the general proximity of the gas line. And from my understanding of the Edison, the ordinance is basically to make sure that no one hits that gas line in any circumstance. So what we're trying to do is, as part of relief we're requesting from the board, we're going to have someone from the gas company come out. They're going to mark out where the pipe is. They're going to make sure we're not in the vicinity of the pipe because it is off-site, so we're not doing work near there. But we are going to go within the 75-foot buffer.
I understand, but you're not going to make it worse. What are the buffer that you have now? You're going to preserve that buffer.
No,
Not going more closer to the pipeline.
we are going closer to the pipeline than what's out there today.
You do or you don't?
We are getting closer, yes.
How close? I mean, that's
We're getting 50 feet, or roughly 50 feet away from where the easement is, not necessarily where the pipe is, but that's where the easement is on New Jersey Turnpike property.
How far away are you from it right now, before you do any work?
The existing,
That's his question.
Mr. Chairman, just give him a moment to get the scale out so he can
Okay.
get the answer.
so there is a fence that's located like 15 feet, or are you talking about the actual building, or are we talking about fences or any kind of improvement?
I'm just trying to see, I do not see where your colonial pipeline going in any of your map.
Sure, I can show you on the aerial map. So on the aerial map, you can see there's a grass area just south of the
yellow
which is
line?
A1. There's a property line shown in yellow.
Right.
And then just below that, there's the roadway, which is New Jersey Turnpike. So between the yellow line and the curb for the New Jersey Turnpike is where the Colonial Pipeline is.
Right.
And then right now, there's a grass area behind the site, which is, we're modifying a portion of it. And there's some existing improvements near the southeasterly corner, which we're looking to remove as part of this project.
So how far is the pipeline now from the property line?
From the property line,
Well, that's not changing, correct, Jim?
that's not changing, no.
I guess the confusion is, well, how far are you within the 75 feet now of the pipeline with your improvements on site currently?
Yes.
How close are you to that line? 60 feet, 50
So there's a
feet,
fence, that's on the property line. It's approximately 15 feet away from the pipeline.
So is that going to change at all, the fence?
We're not touching that fence, no.
Okay, so now the improvements now, there's no curbing or paving or anything like that within 75 feet?
There's not, but there is some utilities. There's a stormwater pipe, which is within the 75 feet. There's also some vaults.
All right, are you going to be digging closer to within that pipe and the gas line, or are you going to be outside that existing improvement?
So we're going to be we're going to be behind approximately, there's a vault, which is probably the closest to where our curb is going to be, which I was just referencing, approximately 50 feet from the pipeline. And there's a vault there already today that we're going to be removing.
So theoretically, you're staying within 50 feet of an existing improvements on the area between the pipeline and your improvement.
Correct.
So you're not really adding to it.
No,
you're
we're
not
just
making it sure. That was the original
Yeah.
question. How much closer are you making it?
Yeah, it's there's some improvements in that area, just not building or parking.
No, it's not some improvement. You are putting an asphalt there. There's a truck traffic there, right? Truck traffic is going to be there on that corner there, correct?
Correct.
You're going more closer to the pipeline, but now there's there's no use there now, but you're proposing that being a truck vehicular traffic.
Yes.
So they're going more closer to the,
Well, the ordinance
within
says,
the fence.
but the ordinance says he can't dig within 75 feet of it. Has nothing. You can drive over it, I guess, if it's within, if it's in the ground and you're not touching it.
I just want to make sure that they will have approval from Colonial Pipeline,
Yeah,
that they're
and
okay with these.
I don't want it to blow up, because
proposed-
we've had that happen in
Okay.
town a few
All
years
right,
back.
got it. Thank
So-
you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, for now.
Okay. Charlie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Henry, in his testimony, went and touched upon the comments, and it's my first review, my first report to the zoning board. This said the application had been filed as a planning board application back in 2022, but jurisdiction changed to the board. And so this is actually my second review. And the applicant, or the engineer, we had exhaustive commentary on stormwater management, and in their revised stormwater management plan They largely addressed the commentary that we offer. I expect that maintenance of that basin is going to be the applicant's responsibility.
That's correct.
And it's reasonable to expect that an operation and maintenance and repair plan manual will be filed with the township?
Yes, and it'll be recorded.
Okay, thank you. Relative to those remaining comments, Section 2, pedestrian vehicular movement, and Section 3, parking, Mr. Paraguay from your shop will address those comments, right?
That's correct.
Okay. As Mr. Henry testified, there was caretaking for site lighting to make sure that there's no spillage of light associated with this property onto adjacent properties. In Section 6, which has to do with utilities, if you do remove a service line, the township will obligate you to remove it to the main and cap it at the main if you're relocating it.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
I'm assuming that doesn't affect the stormwater, though. Just,
oh, no,
just,
no,
just
no.
water
This
and-
is relative to sanitary waste disposal, water
Yes.
supply, and other utilities. One comment that hadn't been addressed, you addressed the issue of hot boxes, et cetera, potential of ground-mounted transformers. Any thought for an emergency generator for the facility?
So there already is a generator on the property, and we're moving that to the south side of the building. So we are going to provide that.
And you'll work with Mr. Brignell to make sure that there's adequate screening in the new location?
Yes.
Okay. The emergency generator you have, is it a diesel generator or is it natural gas?
I believe it's diesel. I'll let the applicant opine on that, though.
Okay, thank you. To Mr. Henry's point relative to environmental issues, the flood insurance rate map shows that the property is not in a flood zone. The DEP GeoWeb mapping system does show that there had been activity in 2008 or so associated with American Can Company. And again, you're going to continue working with DEP, that agency, to the extent you have to with an LSR pay?
Yes.
Okay. And I have miscellaneous commentary. I did ask you to describe buffering to the adjacent residential areas, and if you just recapitulate your testimony.
Sure. So
you're going back to A4, Jim?
yes, we're referencing A4. So we're proposing a line of 8 to 10 foot evergreen trees along the easterly property lines. That's adjacent to lot 22, lot 16, and lot 15. As we get back to the basin along the easterly property line, we're proposing a double row of evergreen trees to really significantly buffer the use. There are a number of existing trees along the westerly property line. We're proposing to maintain the majority of them and then supplement with additional evergreen trees along the westerly property line where our property line abuts other residential uses. And then we're also proposing evergreen trees on the northerly property line to again buffer the uses from the residential uses on the other side of Tiverton Lane East.
And as part of the buffer, just to answer Mr. Carvey's question, there's also fencing proposed in certain areas, correct?
Yes, correct.
You are proposing rather large evergreen trees. I'm sorry. Mr. Henry, you're proposing large evergreen trees, and have you contemplated irrigation for those planting beds?
Yeah, I believe we are going to do irrigation just because of the amount of plantings that we're proposing.
Okay. And that's what I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So you'll comply with Mr. McNell's and Mr. Carley's reports? There's no
Yes,
issues
we
with
will.
them?
Yes.
Okay. So what we'll do is go to the board members, if you have any questions.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Good.
And then you can go next, because you have...
Go ahead, Mr. Barone.
Mr. Henry, thank you very much for a very extensive testimony in many, many areas. I just want to touch on one question. Of the historic aerial sites that you presented,
Yes.
57, I think, and 63, just for the board, what advantage do you think this provides for us?
I think it's good to know that the use has been there a long time. It predates municipal land use law, so I don't believe we weren't able to find any sort of
Excuse me.
evidence.
Excuse me. Can you put that up, what
Yeah.
exhibit it was, so we
Sure.
can?
Do you want me to put up
Well,
A3 or A3? Brian?
Whatever you want.
All right, so referencing A3, I think it's helpful to understand, it's kind of an odd orientation. I don't think the residential uses, typically you don't see residential uses immediately adjacent to a warehouse facility, and also you don't see a situation where, where the residential uses are around the warehouse facility. So what I'm trying to emphasize is that this warehouse facility was there. This residential builder built around the warehouse, so this use has been there a long time, and that is how the residential development was constructed.
Yeah, and Mr. Barone, also, sorry, I'm right here. No, it was just also from a legal perspective, if we're going to put on proofs that it's a D2 variance for a pre-existing non-conforming, we just wanted the foundational testimony.
So it predated the RB zoning, is that
Right.
what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay. So you're going to go from like 256,000 currently to almost 349,000 square feet?
Jim, could
Squaring
you just
off
gi-
your building?
Yeah, Jim, can you just give the numbers, please?
Yes.
Just give the existing and the proposed to answer Mr. Barone's question.
So the proposed is 378,930 square feet, and the existing is, give me 1 second.
It's a 98,000 square foot addition, so.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's about 100,000 square feet more, right?
Yes.
Okay. You offered so much in your testimony, Mr. Henry, but I'm just going to ask one question regarding the separation of traffic, truck and car that you alluded to.
Yes.
Is that on site only? Because how can you control traffic, car and truck traffic off-site?
That's on site only, yes.
On site,
Yep.
okay. There are other things, but I will get back to you, but thank you for your answers to this point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barone. Go ahead, Mr. Daly.
All right, Mr. Chairman, are we going to hear more testimony about the D variance for the expansion and the height and FAR?
Yeah,
This
so
is it.
what I plan on doing is I have Mr. Henry doing the civil testimony for the site plan. I'll have the architect come up and explain the building, the elevations, the height. Then I'll have traffic, then operational, and then the planner will ultimately provide the testimony based on the foundation provided by those other witnesses on those variances.
Okay, so as I understand, currently, there's a 23% building coverage, correct?
Jim, can you answer
No,
that,
that's
please?
required. Currently, you are at 36%. You are non-conformance use currently, correct?
Correct.
Yes, the bulk standard for coverage does not currently comply. That's correct.
Correct. And then you are making it from 36% non-compliant to 50%.
Jim, just
That's correct.
Right, so you're making it, and your argument is you're trying to square off the building, correct?
No,
The expansion?
we've given all kinds of things. Basically, when you're trying to justify a variance, you basically have to, there's D variance proofs our planner will get into.
Yeah.
But we gave
I
a tremendous
heard
amount of
that-
testimony about all the different benefits and all the different improvements that we're doing in order to basically justify the variance to be issued by the board.
I get it. I heard that you are squaring of the building. If you're just the squaring of the building, if that's what argument is, your expansion on west side that you're adding, that's not a squaring of the building, correct?
On the
That's
west,
basically Edison.
on the west side?
Yeah.
Right, so the west side
You don't
is
have to go there, the expansion, if you're just squaring of the building.
Well, our architect will get into why that's necessary, and he'll go into the reasons internally why that's necessary. And our client, I'm sure, from an applicant perspective, he'll also give reasoning.
Sure. What's the current use of the building? Warehouse?
correct.
And proposed use is warehouse as well?
Correct. Yeah, same
Same
operator.
use, same
CNA
use, not changing anything else?
Yeah, same use, same operator, CNA Global, and same hours of operation. And days of the week as well.
And then you said it's 9 to 6 p.m. weekdays, Monday to Thursday, Friday 9 to 2.
Correct.
Friday off, Saturday off,
Saturday closed, Sunday closed, except
Sunday
during,
closed as well.
except during the holiday I'll call it, the end of the year holiday season.
So that's what you have current use now? So there's no traffic from Friday afternoon till Monday morning?
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Except for that.
And it's going to stay that way?
That's correct.
Any deed restriction currently for the expanse or any use, any different use? Any deed restriction currently?
I'm not aware of anything in title in terms of a deed restriction for other uses. I can double check that, but I'm not aware of any.
We'd have to look at because there is a deed restriction for the.
For the environmental.
Yeah.
But I can double check that for you before the next meeting.
And the current height of the structure now?
Oh, Jim, can you answer that, please?
Yeah, so the existing height is approximately, it's about 2.5 stories, roughly about 32 feet, I believe, but our architect will get into very specific as far as the existing height.
And you are adding one more floor?
No, it's just making, so most warehouse uses are, I'm sure our architect will get into this, but most warehouse uses are typically about 50 feet high. Most of the ones that we're doing, throughout the state, typically you have about a 50-foot height just for racking purposes, and our architect will get into, why that's done and the efficiency of that type of design.
But you are increasing, seeking for the height variance as well, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
We are, yeah.
And you are going from 32 feet to what?
46.63.
So what are you adding, another floor, or are you just adding the height?
I think it would be better,
The
instead of us
architect,
paraphrasing, let the
that's fine.
architect.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I just want to see, I did not see any building elevations. Are you adding more
That's coming.
windows for the privacy?
Yeah,
I just want to see-
the architect has colored renderings, and we'll show all that.
That's fine. And the lights probably around the perimeter is going to stay, or you're adding more lights, or you're increasing the height of the light poles?
Yeah, Jim, just go through that one more time, please.
Yeah, so right now we're modifying the overall circulation area, so we are adding light poles, but we are basically minimizing the impact to neighbors. So we're adding lights. We're going to shut them off during non-peak hours, during the hours where they're not operating. And as you can see, they close fairly early. So we're going to shut off the lights around the perimeter of the property, except for some security lights. So we are adding lights basically behind the building and along the easterly side of the building.
Can you just reiterate, in order to answer the question too, is there any spillage onto the neighboring properties?
There's not, no.
And I'm going to hear more testimony about buffering the height of the trees and kind of stuff as well separately, correct?
Jim did give that testimony. He can go over it again. Just ask your question.
I did not hear, you're adding more trees on all three sides of the property. What's the height of those trees?
So the trees, in most landscaping plans that we prepare, they're generally installed like 3 to 4 feet. In this situation, we spoke to our client, and he's agreeing to install them at 8 to 10 feet.
8 to 10 feet.
Yes.
And I'm going to hear testimony from
Hold
our
on.
traffic engineer for the traffic load and pattern and kind of stuff.
Yes,
correct?
that's right.
All right, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just to
Anything else?
clarify the landscaping, they may plant them at 3 feet somewhere else, but they don't plant them 3 feet here. They're shrubs. To get a one-for-one tree replacement in this town, you have to be at 8 to 10 feet if it's an evergreen, and it has to be a 2.5-inch caliper for a deciduous tree, and then you get credits if the caliper is larger by ordinance. So, and I haven't really looked at their revised plan yet, so I'll comment on that before the next meeting.
One more thing I missed there. You're still pending the approval and exemption from the Middlesex County Planning Board, Freehold Soil Conservation District, and other agencies, correct?
Yes.
Do you have any timeline where you're going to get it?
We have review letters. So what we were looking to do is come to this board, see if we have any feedback, any modifications we have to do, and then we were to submit an application back to them with a more finalized plan.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anything else?
No.
So in reference to the trees, you'll install irrigation system?
Yes.
In reference to this holiday peak season, what month is that?
I'll have the operator explain that, but my understanding, Mr. Chairman, is that it's the Thanksgiving through Christmas season, where it just gets it's a little bit busier, so they have to be open on Sunday depending on demand. But I'll have the operator explain that further.
Thank you.
Sure.
You're going to remove the water tower. Does that affect anything, or?
No, so I'll let the operator discuss that because that wasn't part of my design, but my understanding is that the water tower is no longer necessary, being that they did some significant water improvements recently. So they can remove that from the site.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Go ahead, Angela.
Yes, hi, good evening.
Good evening.
I see that to quantify the traffic impact, there is a table included. The letter's dated August 2022. It's about a year old. Is there any updated traffic, or is this the standing traffic impact table to look at?
Yeah, I'll have Mr. Paragoy, the traffic engineer. He's going to, no, it's okay. He's going to do a comprehensive direct testimony based on his report, and he'll answer any questions on that you might have. Sure.
Anything else? Anyone? Thank you, Mr. Henry.
Thank you.
Mr. Henry?
Who's your
All right.
next witness?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next witness is our architect, Charles Dietz. Oh, yeah. Jim, can you just...
You need to be quiet, please. Please.
Hello?
In the back, please.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman, just in
Dietz.
terms of process, we're going to be going through our witnesses before public questions of the witnesses.
Correct.
So we'll have to make sure all the witnesses are here when the public asks questions.
Well,
correct?
it's 9:12 right now. We go to 10:30, so we'll just
Yes,
just
yes,
proceed
in
what you're
answer-
doing.
Okay.
Yes, in answer to your question, you will have to have your witnesses present. for
No,
the
that's
next
fine. I
meeting.
just want to make sure the public knew the process, that's all.
So, Mr. Dietz, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes,
Please state your full name for the record.
Charles P. Dietz, D-I-E-T-Z, Managing Member of the Dietz Partnership LLC Architects, located at 90 East Halsey Road, Parsippany, New Jersey.
All right.
And your license is current and active,
Yes, it is.
and your qualifications?
I have a Bachelor's of Architecture degree from the New Jersey School of Architecture at NJIT. I've been a licensed practicing architect for the past 35 years in the state of New Jersey. I also hold 14 other states along the eastern seaboard. I have testified before this board several times, as well as most major municipalities in the state of New Jersey.
And Chuck, your license is current and in good standing?
Yes,
Thank you. We'll accept your qualifications.
thank you.
All right, so why don't we get started by going through, I guess, an overview or rendering of the site so the board sees and the public sees the proposal. So this is a colored rendering of the elevations the board has.
So these will have to be marked because you have not seen the color renderings.
All right, so this will be A5, council. Yep, A5. And Chuck, this was prepared by your office?
Yes, it was.
All right, and I guess we'll mark the today's date, council. All right. All right, Chuck, so why don't you describe the elevations, and then we'll go into the floor plans in a little bit.
Okay, I'd like to start with this
Excuse
Exhibit
me, Mr.
A5.
Dietz, Mr. Dietz, one sec. Do you have 8.5 by 11s for the board or the board secretary?
Of this version?
Of this version. I know this is a colorized rendering of one
Yeah.
that we already have. Is that correct?
Yes.
I was a bad boy, and I usually bring copies, and I did not. I apologize.
I'm just going to ask that that be provided to the board
That's-
secretary for dissemination to everyone.
That's fine. And going forward, the board would like minimized exhibits of what's on the boards, correct? We'll provide those. Okay, no problem.
My apologies. Once we got into the project and we started the design, we thought it was important, both for the neighbors and for the board, to understand how this building addition and height increase would sit on the property. So what we did is we actually had drone images flown. So you see A5 is actually an actual drone image looking west on Tivit Lane with our building, with the expansion and its increased height, all the proper landscaping that conforms to Mr. Henry's landscape plan, as most accurately depicted as we could. The new buffer white plastic vinyl fence along the eastern property line with the evergreen shrubs in front of it on our side of the property line. So I thought this as an overall, like the color site plan, would give both the board and the neighbors a better perspective on what the actual height of the building would look like once it's constructed, looking down Tivit Lane as it actually exists today based on the drone images that we took about 2 or 3 months ago. So the drone images are very current. They were taken at the beginning of the summer. So we thought it was important to have our renderer go ahead and drop this footprint of the building with the heights, the colors, the signage, and all the landscaping into this image so everybody got a comprehensive look at what we're proposing. If I can turn it around, I'll call it A6. And we did these when we originally designed the building a year and a half ago.
And again, Chuck, prepared by your office, correct?
Correct. And what this is more of a perspective in color of both sides of the building. If you're coming down Tivit Lane heading east, which is the bottom elevation. So this is the first driveway as you approach on Tivit Lane to come into the complex, which currently has both vehicular traffic and truck traffic, which is now going to go away. And then again, you see the entire frontage, which is facing the residential, gives you a better perspective on how much landscaping we're proposing and is there today to help visually block this building from the neighbors on the north side of Tivit Lane. And then the top elevation again is if you were looking all the way down the side where we're creating that new drive aisle for the trucks to come down to get to the back of the building or the southern facade, and then looking down Tivit Lane in both directions. There were 3 major tasks when the applicant hired my firm several years ago, 2.5 years ago. The first task was to really, and his goal was to really modernize the building. We're talking about a 350,000 square foot building now with the additions, or a little bigger. The inefficiencies that he currently has in his operations due to his height constraints within the building, the lack of proper number of loading docks to facilitate the amount of trucks that need to come in and out of this site. Hence one of the problems. They were idling on the street, they were idling in the fronts of the building, which is now all going to be minimized when everything is moved to the back. And then to give it a new aesthetic appeal as we create these additions and come up with a new color scheme to really soften more earth tone colors to, again, make it a much more presentable building for both the community and the neighborhood adjacent. And to touch on some of the questions as part of my testimony, the facility is doing very well, and they needed the growth not only in square feet on the ground, hence why we're squaring off the building and creating this extra GLA footprint around the building. But the biggest question is, modern warehouses today, as Mr. Henry mentioned, are 45 to 50 feet tall, and they provide 36 feet of clear racking space inside. He was far short of that as the building stands today. As Mr. Henry mentioned, we have the building as anywhere from 1957 to 1963, and if you looked on the plans, and you look at my floor plans, the key plans that were submitted, you could see that there's lines that run through that looks like these buildings were built at separate times, and they were definitely built at separate heights, which is even more of a problem for the logistics of this applicant's operation. The center portion of the building that's sandwiched by the east and westerly side is the tallest part of the building. That currently has 26 feet of clear height for racking inside the building. The easterly facade is the next tallest, has 20 feet of clear height inside the building. The southerly portion facing the turnpike, which is basically the office area, has 18 feet of clear height. And unfortunately, the westerly facade has the shortest clear height of only 16 feet. So you can see when you look at the logistics, he has to set his operations in a different, not really efficient manners because of the different heights. He has to rack different product and different things in different portions of the building because they're all at different heights. So his first goal was get more volume at a consistent height. So what we're proposing is to take all the existing building, raise the roof in sections, obviously, so we can remain open, get that up to the 36-foot clear height, and then any of the new additions would also be constructed at that 36 clear height. Mr. Henry mentioned a height for the average for the building, and I'll explain that, of 46 feet 3 inches. That's actually not how tall the building is. Your ordinance requires us to measure the building as an average height around the entire perimeter of the building. So as the grade changes between the front and the rear where the loading docks are, which are 48 inches lower, and some of the grades on the east and west side, that all adds into the average height of the building. The actual height of the building that's shown on my architectural plans that were submitted to the board, the main parapet is going to be at 42 feet 8 inches. That's the main parapet around. The roof is a couple feet below that. And then where we created these a little amenity architectural features at each corner on the northeast and the northwest facade in a wood look-like product, trying to mimic that little softer image like you have throughout the neighborhoods. Those bump ups are 2 feet higher. They're at 44, 8 inches tall, but they only occur at these two corners. And then we have several that we've done along the easterly facade facing the neighbors, just to break up the monotony of a blank facade at that height and at that distance. So again, your ordinance requires us to measure average grade that gives you 46.3, but in reality, the building will be 42.8 and 44.8 at the architectural features. Again, so that was very important for the applicant to get that extra height and to get the extra GLA on the ground, all at the same height. So now he can come in and really optimize his operations with a racking engineer to come up with the most efficient way to rack this building. And to answer the other board members' question, we are not proposing any additional floors in this building. The height is there to get the clear height for racking and the optimization of putting the product in and out when the shipments come in and when they go out throughout the building at the same clear height and maximum racking, which is 36 feet in the modern world today. You go to the Amazons and the Googles, they're actually now pushing 40 feet, but 36 was enough for this applicant. So we are now going to have an optimum building, all at the same height, all at the same elevation, squared off with no jogs or offsets throughout the building, and then taking all the receiving facilities that were both at the front northeast side and the center part of the building on the northwest side and moving them to the rear of the building. With the ability to have these parapets a little taller than the roof, that will act as the screening devices for any equipment. And again, to answer one of the board members' questions, warehouses are unconditioned. So we're not talking, even though we're 350,000 square feet, we're not talking large package units on the roof. We're basically talking about ventilation units that bring fresh air into the space, and we're talking about both internal and external heating units just to maintain an average temperature in the wintertime so that the sprinkler system does not freeze. This building is currently fully sprinklered, and we will continue to extend that system and maintain that sprinkler system throughout the new facade and new additions to the building.
So Chuck, just to emphasize the one point that you just made, the HVAC equipment on the roof or any of the equipment on the roof will not be visible and it will be screened by the parapet.
That's correct.
Okay.
And as Mr. Henry mentioned, the applicant's can try to maintain, when we raise the roof, he'll raise the solar panels that are currently up there as well, if he can do that. You want to say? And I can sort of testify about the sprinkler system and why the water tower can come down. Shortly after I was hired for this part of the project, the applicant called me probably a year in and said, we need you to prepare a drawing for the sprinkler room because we've brought a new service, a modern day service into the building from the municipal water source, and we need a drawing to show the fire department because we're taking down we can take the water tank down, and we have a brand new modern, it's probably a year and a half old, in the building, in the existing sprinkler room. We removed all the old existing sprinkler piping that was attached to the water tower. So I can testify that I actually submitted signed and sealed architectural and MEP plans that did that work, that were submitted to the town, approved, and I believe they've completed all that work to date. As Mr. Henry mentioned, we are reducing the amount of signage that's around almost on all four sides of the building, down to basically these two corners, the northeast corner and the northwest corner. We've taken the CNA logo that currently sits over the existing office area entrance, and we've put that medallion not up above the roof, but at a nice height that people can see it. And I believe it's 25 square feet for each of them. They'll be internally illuminated, so there'll be no visible light source. And it'll just say CNA Global with their logo at each of those two corners. And then we're maintaining the sign over the existing office entrance, which is on the northwest side, which has the logo and I believe the word CNA Global on it as well. So that's why we were able to reduce the billboard. The back of the building had signage. I believe the easterly side had signage. There was signage everywhere. We're taking all that off, bringing it to the forefront. I think it's aesthetically pleasing. Again, it's going to be mounted on this simulated wood product that goes full height. And we basically took this image and created our two freestanding signs. So if you look on my drawing, I believe it's on sheet A8, we show both elevations of the two signs. The northwest sign will be by that northwest driveway, and it'll say employees only. So they want to make sure truckers know not to go in that driveway anymore. And then we're going to have another sign on the northeast driveway. These are both located on the site plans that Mr. Henry prepared. And that will not only say CNA Global, but it'll say truck entrance. So we're really trying to identify, and I'm pretty sure the traffic engineer can speak more to that, but we're really trying to identify each entrance for what it's used now versus, or to future versus what it's used now. And the truckers will get the handle on that after the very first trip to the building, realizing there's no more loading docks on the westerly side. They have to come all the way down and use the northeast driveway.
Chuck, could you just recap some of the building materials that you used and some of the...
Just go in there.
See that?
So
just to improve the aesthetics.
What we looked at, the existing building is an off-white, a gray with some black, which is fine for a warehouse if it was sitting on a highway or a farm field and not surrounded by residential houses. So the next thing I did when we talked about increasing the height and increasing the area of the building is to come up with a new color scheme, which is more of an earth tone. It's a light to medium tan for the main body of the building up at the higher portion with a white stripe almost to the top parapet, and then a more earth tone brown like it's coming out of the ground at the lower portion, which I believe is approximately 16 feet tall. And then it's accentuated by these wood decorative features at both corners and going down both the easterly driveway and the westerly driveway. So I think just the change in color palette softens it, adding the faux wood features brings it into a little more conformance with the neighborhood around it. And I think it's a much nicer looking building, and this improvement will be done on all four sides. So even though the public won't see the backside facing the turnpike or all the way at the back of both driveways, we are proposing these colors and features all the way around all four sides of the building. So that's really it. It came down to architecturally is how do we get the proper height and the proper square footage to actually more efficiently run the operation that's there today and bring it into modern warehouse and shipping standards. And I do a lot of warehouse work in the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area, and that's what we tried to incorporate into a building that currently does not function in an optimal way.
So just from a fire suppression standpoint, the building will be fully sprinklered, correct?
Correct. And
Okay.
it was sized knowing these additions were coming when we did the new fire sprinkler line.
ADA compliance?
Yes.
Okay. And then in terms of any environmental efficiency that you're able to add to your design, can you speak to that?
Yes, because we're going to be raising the roof, it'll be a new roof. Currently, the roof has almost, if any, R-value capabilities with insulation on the roof. We're going to install a new 5-inch minimal R30 value insulated roof because most of the building is now being wrapped by the new addition. We can bring a proper R19 or better insulating value in the wall system. So again, doing both of these features, raising the roof and building the addition, we're able to make a more energy efficient building and bring it closer to meeting the energy code that the state of New Jersey requires.
Okay, that's all I have for Mr. Dietz. We're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. All I'd like to do is go to our Township professional planner and engineer. Hank?
Mr. Chairman, we asked a question before about rooftop screening of the plan. Will there be any rooftop equipment?
Yes, there'll be equipment. There's equipment there now. We have some Google images of it. But it's low. It's not big package units. Like I said, there are more ventilation units and some heating units to keep the sprinkler system from freezing.
Will it be screened from public view? That's the question.
Yes, that's with the parapet. That's why the roof is actually lower than the 42.8 that I show as my parapet.
Is the equipment lower than the top of the parapet?
You won't see it because it'll be closer to the middle of the building in your eye perspective.
I've heard that before. Will it be lower than?
It'll be, most likely it'll be lowered, yes.
No, most likely yes or no. Because that question, I go through this all the time. The building gets built, and you're on the road, and all of a sudden you see the rooftop units, and we have a violation. So it's either yes or no question.
To my testimony that if anything is visible, we will physically screen it with a third-party screening system, which I've done many times, because we haven't designed all the systems that are up there. I just know I have a 4-foot parapet, and all the equipment is towards the middle of the building.
Mr. Chairman, I'd feel more comfortable if the answer was yes, it'll be screened from public view. That's a simple answer.
Yes, it will be screened from public view.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's all I have for the architect.
Charlie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a real quick question. Are you going to have air conditioning in the building?
No, the only air conditioning that exists now is over on the south side for the office, first floor office and the mezzanine office.
Okay.
Everything else is unconditioned space.
Yeah, sometimes the concern comes up, your air conditioning such a big space, there's a lot of water that's generated by the air conditioning units, but no air conditioning, that doesn't become a concern.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And you'll comply with both Mr. McNally's report and Mr. Carley's reports?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any board members, questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the current roof deck, is it steel, concrete, poured concrete slab?
It's a steel structure, bar joists and steel beams and joist girders. And we will do we have a company already in mind. If we're so inclined to get an approval, we've already had a meeting with them to make sure it was functional. They basically come in, they unbolt the steel from the columns, and they will raise the existing steel up to the final height, and then we'll put a new roof on top of that for the insulation.
And you extend the 4 walls on 4 sides.
Yes, so the whole building is a non-combustible 2B construction type currently, and we'll maintain that.
So existing steel with the roof deck remains?
Yes, just raised and elevated.
The new roof?
And a new roof, correct.
Is it a flat roof?
Yes, it'll have pitch to it to meet the plumbing code for the national standard IBC plumbing code. And we'll actually probably be able to enhance the roof drainage, because I'm not sure what pitch it's at now because the building is so old, which they didn't have standards back then, but we'll be able to maintain the 1/4-inch slope to new roof drains to take the water off the roof, which will meet the plumbing code for the state of New Jersey 2021.
And there's no scoopers outside the building. You are collecting all the water in
That's correct.
roof drains inside the building and connecting to the storm line, correct?
Correct.
And it's going to go into existing storm line that you have.
Correct.
And the sprinklers are going to be new sprinkler system with the raised deck?
They'll just modify it. They'll raise it up, and then they'll have to extend the lines into the new additions.
It's a wet system or dry system?
It's a wet system.
And then you're going to maintain the pump, whatever you need for, did you check what the pressure is on the water?
Whatever they had a sprinkler engineer do the new system. All I did was redesign the room and show the new lines coming in, but it was actually designed, signed and sealed drawings by a sprinkler engineer about 2 years ago that was submitted to the town of Edison.
So I heard that you just gave me testimony that there's a water tank, that you're going to get rid of the water tank?
Yes.
So now you have few fire main coming into the building.
It's already there, it's been installed
With the
and
pressure,
inspected.
you need the fire pump, you'll put the fire pump.
Yes, it's already there. If we needed one, it's already there. The sprinkler engineer took care of that prior to me being hired.
So it will be completely fire department code compliant new system.
Correct.
All right, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Chairman,
Go ahead, Ms. Prince.
it's a quick question. How long do you foresee construction to take place to achieve this proposed height and other adjustments?
I don't have a specific answer because we spoke to the company that raises the roof. And if we're going to keep the applicant in business while this happens, it's going to be a great coordination between his staff and the roof raising people. We can only take so many sections of the building at a time. They'll remove the racking and the product. They'll come in, they'll do so many square feet, raise it, and then they'll work their way through the whole building. That's not something that our company does. We'll work on the details with them, but I really can't speak to how many months or years it will take to get everything done if we're granted an approval.
We'll try to get an answer for you on that before the end of the proceedings, so you know.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair. I have a question for the architect. So I have a couple of questions with the height. To start off, what's the highest point with including the parapet wall?
So these little architectural features are 2 feet taller than the main parapet. There, if you don't take the average grade and you take the actual height, these are at 44 feet 8 inches tall. The main parapet around the building is 42 feet 8 inches tall.
Okay. And the roof?
Is about 3 to 4 feet below that, and we'll have a pitch to it depending on where we install the drains so that we can get positive flow of the water off the roof between the new addition and the existing buildings.
Okay. My next question would be the existing facade from Tivit Lane. What is the current height? 32 feet?
Well, as I said, actually, this is a better exhibit if we pull up Mr. Henry's.
That's A4.
A4, well, kind of a better exhibit. There's a line on the existing plan that runs through the middle that has 26-foot clear height, which is about 32 feet in height to the roof, which goes all the way up to Tivit Lane. This section all the way back here is at 20 feet, so it's probably 24 feet in height. The shortest part of the building is on the westerly side, is only 16 feet clear, so that means it's approximately 20 feet in height on the westerly side. So again, whether the building was built in phases, because there are definitive column lines where all these breaks in these roofs are, so it leads me to believe that over several years, this fully built building that's there today was done in probably a couple of years in different phases as that original user expanded. And then the office mezzanine is at the southerly side here. That's at 18 feet clear. So again, probably 22 feet in the back.
Okay.
So it's all over the place when you look at the building.
So on average, just for the sake for the residents to visualize, adding 12.8 to 18 feet to the existing height of the building.
Correct.
And making it consecutive throughout the whole 350,000 square feet.
Correct. That parapet will run at 42.8 all the way around the building.
Okay.
There'll be no scuppers there?
Roof drains.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Deek.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Mr. Chairman, can we take 5 minutes? Is that okay?
Yeah, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you.
Okay.
Everyone, please be seated so we can start. Meeting is called to order. Okay, thank you. It's 9:48. We end at 10:30 roughly, and the applicant has about 3 more witnesses, so it looks like we're not going to get to the public tonight, just to make you aware of it, all right? And also, in part of the package, we don't have a letter from the fire department.
I'll follow up and see if they can issue one before the next meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and there's a fire drawing also that needs to get
We
submitted?
did, I believe we submitted a fire truck turning exhibit, but if there's any additional information that the fire official or Mr. Bignell feels we need to submit, we'll do that.
Okay, we have a letter from the Edison Police on the traffic.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, just to answer one of the board members' questions, during the break, I checked on the construction timeline, and approximately 15 months was what was.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
You have your next witness?
All right, the next witness I'd like to call is our traffic engineer, Craig Paragoy from Dynamic Traffic. So we should swear him in.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
And please state your full name for the record.
Sure. My name is Craig Paragoy, P-E-R-E-G-O-Y.
All right, and Craig, if you could just go through your qualifications, educational background, licenses held, and experience testifying before this board and any other boards in the state of New Jersey.
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Virginia Tech. I'm a licensed professional engineer in New Jersey. Been working as a traffic engineer for 23 years now, and I testify pretty much on a nightly basis in front of boards, including here in Edison, many times over the past 15 years or so.
Your licenses are valid and updated?
They are.
Thank you.
Okay, so the board will accept him?
Yes, we accept you.
Thank you so much. All right, so Craig, what I'd like you to do, you prepared a traffic impact study for this matter, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that traffic study analyzes trip generation, on-site circulation, and parking, among other things, correct?
Correct.
All right, so I'd like you to go through your analysis on those and also provide some existing condition background as well that relate to your specific testimony.
Sure. And just, I heard the question before about the date on the report. The original report was August 18th, 2022, but it's revised through March 29th, 2023. So it's much more recent than a year old. So essentially what we did for this project, since we had the benefit of an existing operation and the ability to see exactly what goes on there, is take traffic counts at the existing site, and we did a full day. We watched the traffic volumes going in and out of this site from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. and we did that on 2 weekdays to make sure that we had consistent data. We counted the cars going in and out and trucks going in and out, separated those, counted the maximum number of parked vehicles on the site, so we got a really good handle on what was going on at that existing operation. Like I said, we did 2 days to compare the data. They're very close, very similar. We counted on Wednesday, March 8th, 2023, and Thursday, March 9th, 2023. The Wednesday volumes were a tick higher than the Thursday. Again, they were consistent, but a little higher, so we stuck with the Wednesday, the higher volumes, as sort of the worst case scenario. And what we found is sort of what you'd expect for an operation like this. You have a spike in traffic in the morning and in the evening associated with employees arriving in the morning and leaving in the evening. And that's generally what traffic engineers focus on. We look at the peak hours, the busiest hours of the roadway, because not only is this generating its most traffic, but the surrounding residences and businesses are also generating their peak traffic. So it's sort of the worst case scenario. But in this case, we also, given the residential neighborhood around the area, want to focus on the daily truck traffic as well. So that's why we did that full day of traffic count. So we had the employees peaking and coming in between 8:30 and 9:30 in the morning and leaving between 5:45 and 6:45. So that's the peak hours, the 2 peak hours. And then the trucks essentially are spread fairly evenly throughout the day, during the day. We had around 20 trucks per day accessing the facility during both of those days, and no spike in truck traffic. I think at the most in an hour was 4 or 5, so they're spread out generally throughout the day. And that's typically what you'd see at a warehouse development like this. Generally, when we don't have the benefit of an existing use, we would use the ITE, or the Institute of Transportation Engineers, numbers to project how much traffic would be generated. So I did that for the existing building to compare to what we actually counted out there, and to give the ITE credit, is very, very close. In terms of car traffic.
And just for the record, Craig, just indicate what the ITE is, and
Yes.
just so the board and the public are fully aware.
Yeah, the ITE is a manual. It's, again, it stands for the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and it's a compilation of research counts taken at various land uses, and you're able to use that data based on the size of a facility, or if it's residential, the number of units, things of that nature, to project traffic volumes. So in this case, we're looking at the warehousing rates that the ITE has, and based on the size of this warehouse, I can make projections and determine how much traffic I think it would generate. We don't have to do that here because we know how much traffic it's generating, but I went through that exercise to compare it to what the ITE data would say.
And
if this were vacant land and we were proposing this.
And the ITE is accepted by the New Jersey Department of Transportation, Middlesex County, and municipalities in New Jersey, correct?
Yes, it's accepted throughout the country. It's pretty much the standard on how we make traffic generation projections. So when I make that comparison of what we counted versus what the ITE says, in terms of car traffic, the ITE suggests that there'd be 104 car trips in the morning peak hour. We counted 101. It's that close. In the evening, it suggests 106. We counted 105. So unbelievably close to that ITE number. The difference, though, is I'm sorry.
That was the existing, correct?
Existing, yes. If we were proposing what's existing today, I would come here and tell you, the ITE tells me this, and this is how much traffic, and it bears out based on those counts. But the difference here is this is generating a little bit less truck traffic. The ITE suggests 7 trucks in the morning, 7 truck trips in the morning, and 8 in the evening. We had 3 in the morning and 4 in the evening. So we're about half the truck traffic that the ITE data would have suggested, but right on with the car traffic. In order to sort of look at the conservative, the higher number, I made my traffic analysis based on the ITE data, which obviously verifies very close to what we actually saw. But in those proposed projections, I used the ITE data to make those analyses. And essentially the difference in that peak hour traffic volume between the existing and the proposed based on the ITE numbers would be an increase in 25 car trips in that morning peak hour and 35 in the evening peak hour. And truck trips, an increase of 1 in the morning and 2 in the evening. That's based on the ITE ratios if you expanded this use based on those numbers. Generally, what's considered a significant increase in traffic, and the New Jersey DOT and jurisdictions really throughout the country consider a significant increase in traffic 100 or more trips. So we're at about 1/3 of that if you just go with the straight ITE numbers. Now you'll hear in testimony after me from the operator that those increases are a little high. It's not realistic for what they're going to actually have in their operations. They're looking at maybe 15 more employees in total and 3 to 5 additional trucks per day in total. But I made my analyses and this projections based on the ITE, not based on their specific operation, which is going to be less, and we're still at well under what you'd consider a significant increase in traffic to and from the property based on that analysis. And part of that is because this is an existing operation. They're modernizing an existing facility to make it run more efficiently. Essentially, the amount of truck traffic would increase farther if they continue the growth and the success that they're having because of that inefficiency without having the ability to store that product in. And again, that's coming up in the operational testimony, and you'll hear how all that specifically works. But it certainly makes sense that a more efficient facility is going to run better. 15 more employees, if they all drive, is a very small number of vehicles, and the ability to make that truck traffic much more organized based on the increased efficiency in the operation is going to be an improvement. In terms of the site circulation, I know Mr. Henry went through pretty substantially, but certainly from a traffic impact perspective, And from a traffic engineer's perspective, whenever you can segregate passenger car traffic and truck traffic, that's a big improvement. We always look to do that when we design new warehouses. That's not the case today. You have trucks backing in the middle of one of the main drive aisles for employees to come in and out. Organizing that truck traffic, separating it from the car traffic, and then tucking it behind the facility adjacent to the turnpike is a dramatic improvement over what's out there today. And again, it's going to provide for a much more efficient operation on the site. In terms of the parking, based on your ordinance, we're required to have 259 parking spaces. It's 1 space per 3,000 square feet of warehouse, 1 space per 300 square feet of office. If you do that math, it comes out to 259 parking spaces. We're providing 199 parking spaces on the site, but again, we're dealing with an existing operation. It's the same tenant coming in, so we were able to see exactly how much parking they were generating today. If you ran those numbers per your ordinance based on the existing site, they would be required to have 177 parking spaces. We counted the max number of parked vehicles throughout those 2 days as of 105. So they have excess parking today. If you project that up based on the proportionate increase in office space that we're proposing, it's going to be a 52% increase in office space within the facility. So if I take that 105, directly proportionally increase it, it comes to 160 parking spaces. Again, we have 199 proposed. So even if you had a straight linear increase, which again, you'll hear from later testimony that the increase in employees will not be a linear increase in that fashion, you still have more than enough parking. And going back to the ITE, they also have data on parking that's published similar to the trip generation data. It's compilation of parking counts. And ground up warehouse, if we were building this on vacant land and I had to say how much parking it would need based on the ITE, it comes to 148 parking spaces. So based on empirical data from the ITE, based on what's actually happening on the site, and based on the operator's comfort and knowledge of their operation and how much parking they need, I certainly think that the 199 parking spaces is going to be adequate to serve the facility.
So just to be clear on the trip gen again, how much truck traffic do you anticipate per day to increase as a result of the proposal?
Yeah, sorry, day-to-day truck increase. The operator anticipates about 3 to 4 additional trucks. If I go through that time of day, I got this, every 15 minutes we counted the cars and trucks going in. If I do the same exercise like I did with the parking for the trucks based on the increase in the percentage of warehouse, it comes to that additional 3 trucks a day, which is what the operator expects. If I use the ITE numbers, it would tell me an additional 10 trucks a day. Again, they're generating about half what ITE says. Half of that is 5. So the 3 to 5 additional trucks per day that they anticipate fits our count data, fits based on a proportionate increase, and comports with the ITE data when I make that comparison.
So even on a conservative estimate of the 10 versus the 3 to 5 that they anticipate, do you see any significant increase or any issues with that?
No, absolutely not. And you're talking about this amount of traffic being spread out over the day. The trucks are spread out throughout the day. It's not like the employees where they're all coming in the morning and leaving in the evening. It's very linear throughout the day.
Okay. You want to talk about site circulation?
Yeah, again, I know Mr. Henry covered it all, but I think the site circulation is dramatically improved by separating the car and truck traffic. Putting the loading docks in the back is a big improvement as well. Well, I understand the fire hasn't reviewed it yet, but from our review of the fire truck circulation, it certainly works well. We're modifying that driveway, the easterly driveway that's going to be the truck driveway, to allow them to smoothly enter and exit the site and not be able to make the mistake and turn right out of the site. It'll geometrically would be nearly impossible for them to turn right and go the wrong direction. The truck route is Pearson Avenue out to Route 1. It's signed at the intersection of Tivit Lane and Pearson Avenue for no trucks.
Excuse me. Can you show that on Exhibit A1 for the streets that you're talking about?
The truck route, yes, sure.
Thank you.
it doesn't go out as far, zoom out as far as where the ultimate truck route is, but all the trucks are directed to come under 287 via Pearson. There's signage restricting trucks from making this left turn and proceeding towards Morris Avenue. The applicant's willing to, and obviously it would be up to the governing body to enhance that signage in any way possible. What's happening, and what we, in discussions with some of the neighbors, we're finding is that the connection to Route 1 is sort of a service road that goes next to a PSE&G substation, and it wasn't called Pearson Avenue. It didn't have a name. So if you're using Waze or Google Maps or any of those routing services, it wasn't recognizing that. So we were able to contact Google and get that changed. If you look now, it'll say that's Pearson Avenue all the way out to Route 1. And from what I understand from the operator, that's having a much improved impact for people who are unfamiliar with the area, and they're taking the proper route. People aren't getting confused, winding up on Morris Avenue and wondering why are these no truck signs? I can't go this way. So that's certainly helping, and I think as time goes on, Google's algorithms improve, and it will route the traffic more properly that way. But it does now call that out as Pearson Avenue.
And Craig,
It's surprisingly easy to do.
And Craig, the only two access points again are on Tivid Lane East, correct?
Correct. Okay. Yes, no change to that, and no change to that routing, and any enhanced signage that is needed, we can certainly provide.
All right. And again, the applicant anticipates 3 to 5 more trucks per day, and ITE, to be conservative, would have at the most 10, correct?
At the most 10.
Okay.
But we have evidence that they're generating about half the truck traffic that ITE suggests.
And is it from a data collection perspective and traffic engineering perspective, is it optimal to have this empirical data that you have, like by counting the existing facility from a parking and traffic perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime that we have the opportunity to do that, it's good not only for projecting in other locations, but certainly specific to this location. The ITE even recommends when you have local data, you should use that. So the fact that it matches up so well with the ITE data, I think really shows that there's nothing unusual going on here, and what we're projecting in the future we can feel comfortable with based on empirical data. And again, you'll hear specific operational data that shows that even those numbers I gave you that aren't very high are probably higher than what you're really going to see.
And Craig, the separating of the truck traffic and the vehicular traffic on site also helps, I guess, would that help pedestrian safety in your opinion?
Sure. You don't have, particularly for the employees on the site, they're not going to be walking across truck aisles. There's a loading dock right on the westerly side of the building, and you can see that there probably was parking spaces there that were striped out in order to allow that truck to back in and out. So you're eliminating that condition. You're putting all the truck traffic where it should be against the turnpike, which makes the most sense in this particular setting. And you're providing proper circulation for them to pull in and out of the site, giving enough loading bays so they're not waiting on site. They're not waiting on Tivid Lane. You heard that from the prior testimony. I won't try not to repeat it too much, but that to me is a tremendous improvement.
And Craig, do the driveways have proper site distances?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And the drive aisles are sized appropriately, both for the vehicular and the truck traffic?
Yes.
All right. And the loading spaces and the vehicular parking spaces, are those properly sized?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
All right. And then in terms of ADA compliance as it relates to parking, can you just speak to that?
Yes, we're fully ADA compliant in terms of the number of spaces, the route to the building. All of that is vetted and confirmed to be acceptable. And we are providing 8 electric vehicle parking spaces per the ordinance requirement. Those technically count as 2 spaces based on state law, but like I said, the 199 physical actual spaces based on this operation, based on ITE data, is more than enough.
Okay, great. That's all I have for Mr. Paraguay, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to our professional engineer and planners. Hank, anything? Billy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Mr. Paraguay testified, Dynamic provided vehicle circulation plans, sheet 26 and 27 of the site plan set. And consistent with Mr. Paraguay's testimony, it shows that you have adequate horizontal clearances on the site. Did you get a chance to take a look at the intersection of Pearson and Tibbet? And the reason I ask that is that the trucks would be WB67. They're sort of big. Did you get a chance to take a look at those clearances there to make sure that trucks aren't hopping curbs, et cetera, and chewing up people's utility strips?
Yeah, I didn't see really much evidence of that out there, and obviously it's been generating truck traffic historically for years, so.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
No, so, I mean, the presumption is that it would continue to operate as it does today, and I don't see any evidence of those types of issues. We're not increasing the size of the trucks coming. It would be the New Jersey size WB67. The AASHTO size is not allowed in New Jersey.
But they end up being pretty good-sized vehicles. And to your point, there is nothing, at least to my eyes, that suggests that there's a lot of trucks hopping the curb, but it's always better to measure twice and cut once. The signage that is out there on Pearson and Tibbet, there is a small all trucks to the right sign over there, and it is off tracked. Would you recommend to the municipality a more conspicuous sign?
It can, in my opinion, when you really want to restrict trucks, especially if they're unfamiliar with the area, the bigger the sign, the better that they're able to see it. I don't know that there's a chronic condition where trucks are going in the wrong direction there, but to the extent that it can be enhanced, we'd absolutely do that.
The hair on the back of my neck would raise just with one or two trucks taking a wrong turn over there. And,
yeah, so the more, that's why I said the bigger the better of that sign, and we'd be happy to.
Yeah, then whatchamacallit, if you can recommend a sign that's more conspicuous than the one that is there. Now, when you're taking the right turn onto Pearson and you go underneath 287, you're restricted just to going Route 1 northbound.
Yep, you have to U-turn.
Yeah, and so that becomes a little bit of a. Did you get a sense of how many trucks leave your facility, want to go to 287 versus want to go to Route 1 northbound?
No, we counted the trucks coming in and out of the driveway. I mean, it would vary. I mean, obviously there's an extensive highway network.
That might be something that when the testimony is put on the record, an operational statement, just so the board has a sense of how the trucks want to go. Intuitively, I think they'd want to go to 287 because then you can get up on the turnpike, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
But it'd be of interest to know what percentage is going on to 287 and what percentage is just going on to Route 1 northbound.
Yeah, and I'll ask if operationally they may have some information on that.
Yeah, so if Mr. Tudell, you think about that for the next hearing.
Understood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anything else? I'm going to go to the board. Any questions from the board members? Go ahead, Anthony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Duvel?
Yes.
How many, do you know how many existing loading docks there are currently as proposed? There will be proposed?
Yeah, I'll let Craig answer.
I wasn't sure.
It's okay. Yeah, I'll let Craig answer.
There's 5, maybe 6, depending on what you'd call a loading dock today, and we will have 23 proposed.
23, so from 5 to 23.
Yeah, much more efficient.
Okay.
But just.
Oh, I just was corrected. There's 5 on each side, so there's 10 existing.
So 5 to 10?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm
not done.
No, there's 10 total. You're saying 10 total?
No, Craig, just clarify that for the records.
There's 10 existing total, 5 on each side. We're going to have 23 in the back, so
okay.
And we won't have trucks waiting.
And just on that issue, just in your opinion, why are the additional loading spaces a benefit?
You're not going to have trucks waiting to load, which we heard from the neighbors happens. And we understand site operationally, they're always having to jockey these trucks around. They don't have sufficient loading docks to make it more efficient. Sometimes a truck may sit there for a day being loaded, and it's taking up one of the few docks, so they're able to make it work much more efficiently. And loading docks don't generate traffic. Warehouse space, warehouses, the building size generates traffic. Same thing with parking spaces. If you take a look at long-term parking lot at Newark Airport has 1,000 parking spaces. It generates very little traffic. A 7-Eleven has 7 parking spaces and generates hundreds of trips a day. So it has nothing. One has nothing to do with the other. It's more about efficiency and serving the building properly. The size of the facility is what generates the trucks.
I have more.
Go ahead.
So to continue, Mr. Perigord, you said that you actually were there on March 8 and 9, and you saw 20 trucks per day. I think that's what your testimony was.
Yeah.
Do you recall that?
Yeah, on the average of 20, about 20 trucks. It was
Okay, so
19 came in.
you were there on March 8 and 9, and you saw 20 trucks per day actual.
Yes.
But then you referred to the ITE reports and how closely it was to the actual counting that you were doing, correct?
Yes.
And this is what I find odd. You actually physically saw 20 trucks per day, but the ITE said that there would be, based on the building size, 7 to 8. And you said actually you can envision 3 or 4 more than that. But that much less than 20 total. I don't understand how the math works.
Yeah, I should have clarified. I understand.
Please.
The 7 to 8 that I mentioned before is in the peak hour, 1 hour. So 7 trucks in the morning peak hour, 8 trucks in the evening peak hour.
Okay.
20 is we saw 20 throughout the day. And like I said, the ITE would suggest about double that throughout the day that we saw. But that 7 and 8 I referenced was just in the peak hour. We saw 3 and 4 in the morning. ITE said 7 and 8. That's
It just,
in 1 hour.
As you described 7-Eleven and Newark Airport,
Yeah.
it just feels, with 23 loading docks proposed, that the traffic is going to remain the same. I'm sorry.
No, it's gonna get. It'll be better in terms of the site circulation with the additional docks. But
Again,
the
I'm
number
just,
of
I'm just
trucks,
commenting
3.
on what I'm hearing, you know.
Yeah.
That was my question. Thank you, Mr. Perigord.
No, but Craig, just to answer that again, just to make sure we're clear, you're indicating that the number of trucks will increase over what's today, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and what does the ITE say versus your empirical data say on the increase per day?
The ITE, if I compare existing to proposed, would say 10 more trucks a day. If I do the math proportionately based on what we counted, 3 more trucks a day. The operator says 3 to 5 more trucks a day. Again, when you look at the peak hours, this is generating half the amount of truck traffic. So that ITE data says 10, half of that's 5. It all comports to 3 to 5 additional trucks per day.
All right.
Anything else, Anthony?
No, I'm okay now.
Okay, good. All right. So you did an on-site evaluation of this year?
Yes.
What was the date?
March 8th and March 9th.
What day of the week is that?
Wednesday and Thursday.
Did you submit that information to the board?
Yeah, it's in our traffic report.
Well, I don't have it.
It was submitted. We could obviously if the board doesn't have the copies, but yes, it was submitted.
Okay. And then
we have it.
Mr. Corley brought up the issue about Tivit and Pearson Lane and about the trucks going south on Route 1. Is that part of your report, or is there?
Yeah, the truck route is Tivit Lane to Pearson North,
Right.
and vice versa to Route.
Right, so what if they want to go south down on Route 1?
Then they have to U-turn on 1 at the next intersection up, which is a overpass. It's not a signal, so it's a.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone?
So,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, can you just show us there, most of your traffic comes to a turnpike, correct?
I would assume the operator's going to give you some
Excuse me,
information on that.
excuse me. Can you go up to the
Can you
exhibit?
just show us where that route is there? Is that going to residential neighborhood?
Well, wait, please, let him do his presentation.
Trucks would exit now only this easterly driveway, turn left, they take Tivid Lane to Pearson, which is signed so trucks don't go left. They go right under 287, and that goes out to Route 1. And there was a little, like I said before, there was a little issue with that because this roadway doesn't say it's Pearson Avenue on any GPS software. It has no name, so it wasn't being routed properly. We were able to correct that.
So doesn't matter what you do with your improvement on your warehouse, the traffic pattern is not changing. You are adding a lot more traffic to the neighborhood.
3 more trucks in a day. Not a lot.
And then
3 trucks over the course of an 8-hour day is, you wouldn't even notice if you were
if
sitting
that,
on one or the other.
Whoa,
Guys.
please.
If that your argument stands, why do you need to add that many loading docks?
Please, you're gonna have to stop the comments. I'm gonna end the meeting, to be honest with you, all right? So, that's the
Because
procedure. Let him do his presentation.
The operation is inefficient without the number of loading docks. They have trucks waiting on site, waiting parked on Tivid Lane. We've heard the complaints from the neighbors that their trucks idling, parked where they're not supposed to be because there isn't a loading dock available. The business is there. They're growing. They're doing whatever they're doing. It's going to continue to operate in that fashion unless they make these improvements.
I understand. You are making more efficient loading and unloading.
Yes.
And that's going to increase the truck traffic as well, correct?
No, the business is the business. The operator will give you the testimony on his specific business, but if I look at it with absent that, it's a very minimal increase in truck traffic. The loading docks don't generate the traffic. The loading docks are used by the trucks. The business, the warehouse itself generates the traffic. The loading docks make it more efficient. That's why I gave you the Newark Airport 7-Eleven analogy. Parking spaces don't generate traffic. The business does.
You are adding
7-Eleven with 7 parking spaces generates more traffic than the 1,000 parking spaces at Newark Airport's long-term garage.
Can I just
It's
do
the
just do
business.
just
one more.
Sure, go ahead.
You are adding almost 100,000 square feet on your,
Yes,
on your
roughly, yes.
building footprint in a volume. No, you're adding square feet.
100,000 more.
I'm
Yes,
just
and
saying
that's
square
where-
feet, not the
33% more.
volume. Square foot. That,
Yes.
and plus you're increasing the height, so now you're adding more volume for more goods. Yes, no?
Yes, that's
Yes.
that's correct.
More
Okay,
volume
and
inside, yes.
then to bring that much good and take that much good out, you need more trucking, correct?
No, they don't have
Please,
they don't have the
please.
space in there now. So they're generating unnecessary truck trips to maximize the space. If the stuff can stay stored in the building longer, that'll be less truck traffic. And that's bared out. The ITE gives you general warehousing rates, and then they also have high cube, which is the higher ceiling heights, and they generate less traffic per square foot than a typical warehouse because of that, because you're able to store more in the building. You don't have to move it around as much. You'll hear
Mr. Chairman,
operational testimony
we
that'll
have
give you,
better
specifics
study
of what
than
they
the
do.
three-page traffic study.
What was that?
The height doesn't
We have better traffic
generate
study
more.
report than three-page traffic study. Do we have a better traffic report than this three-page traffic report?
Yeah,
Yes, there was a
that's
report.
what you must not have. It's
Yeah.
probably 30, 40 pages.
Yeah, the report was initially dated August 18, 2022. That's the larger report. And then there was a revised version dated March 29, 2023.
Yeah, it's this.
The last one submitted to the board was dated August 18, 2022. We never received a revised report.
And is that just a letter, or is that?
It's a 3-page letter.
Right, so this is what.
Yep, we
this is a
never received
full-size
that as part of a submission.
All right, we'll make sure that you get it.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So just so we're clear, we need a copy of the report, the full report, as well as the update in March.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
that-
The board
that- this
doesn't
is
have-
the update, yes.
That's the update?
Yeah, the March is the thick report, the letter was just the initial, take.
We'll just resubmit all the traffic data so you have it.
Yeah.
All right, anyone else?
So you also have your traffic, the cars, you said Any peak hours, we had 40 in, now you're increasing to 49?
No, I'm not, I'm sorry, say that again? I don't,
In the peak hours in the AM, you said the traffic for the cars, I believe that's employees, correct?
yeah, we had 101 trips in the morning, cars,
And
and 3 trucks. And then in the evening, it was 105 cars and 4 trucks.
so increasing the volume, increasing the business, you are not adding any more employees?
No, the applicant anticipates 15 more employees. Our analysis, again, based on the ITE, came out to about 29 to 30 more employees. So,
And in evening hours, the warehouse is closed, nobody's working evening hours in the warehouse?
correct,
Everybody would leave?
yes, and that's what we saw. Everybody was out.
Okay.
The last 2 cars left at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, it's 10:25. How many more witnesses do you have?
We would have 2 more, and obviously we'd have to, any other questions that were asked that we need to clarify, we'll obviously have to deal with those as well.
So the witnesses would be the owner and,
Our planner, but we'll bring everybody back, obviously, because the public has the right to
Okay.
question all the witnesses, so we would bring everybody back.
okay. So can we have the next meeting?
We have October 17th, 2023 available.
Let me just check with the group.
Take your time.
I can't do that day.
What's that?
I can't do that day. Is there another date?
You can't do the 17th or the October 24th? Please. Go ahead. So you can't do the October 17th or the 24th?
Oh, I didn't hear the 24th. I'm available the 24th. Let me see if. Let me just check with everybody else. Everybody, okay. Yes, everybody's good on that date.
All right.
Okay.
So everyone understands, and when we come back on October 24th, there'll be no notice. This is the notice. And then once the applicant presents all the witnesses, then the public, if they have a representative, they will go, and then the public can speak. All right?
So just to be clear, the application, there'd be no more further notice. It's being adjourned to October 24th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in this room.
Correct.
Okay.
And you're going to get the updated traffic report to submit it, right?
I'll make sure you have that, and then I think council asked me for an extension of time, which I'll obviously sign also.
Okay.
Can we have a date on that? Extension till when?
Do you want it through November 2023?
Yeah, let's do it past the meeting if we can.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
I'll say through the end of November 2023.
Motion to close?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Everyone agree?
Aye.
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 Any
Aye.
ayes? Nays? Any nays? Meeting closed. Thank you.